Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the board. This meeting is called to order at 4:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Student Member Jose, Ms. Armstrong,
Present.
Dr. Alhessan,
Present.
Mrs. Garza, Ms. Stewart,
Present.
Mr. Critchfield.
Present. Tonight, we do have requests addressing closed session agenda items. I'm going to read a little spiel. While meetings of the governing board are not public meetings, they are open to the public. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item, and the board will limit the total time for public input to 21 minutes. So 3 minutes each per board bylaw 9322.2. May I have Dr. Robinson to the podium? Welcome, Dr. Robinson. I didn't do it too. The right button. No. Just touch it. Yeah, just the little green little. I don't think so. I could try, but it's not going to work.
Board and cabinet, and superintendent, I really appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. I want to thank you for the changes that have been made. They've been slow. Plato said the beginning is the most important part of the work, but it's how you end that matters. And obviously, we're not at the end yet. We have a lot of work ahead of us. When we had our last two superintendents, one of the things we were working for as a bargaining unit was to move us to common interest bargaining. That's really what we thought we were moving toward. In fact, your chair of your bargaining team has on his website that that's one of his priorities and that students are his priorities. However, we're challenged by some of the decisions that are being made regarding what we're doing moving forward for kids. And so tonight, myself and all of those who are assembled behind me and those who are not in this room currently who also share the same views would like to articulate to the board that we want the interests of our children represented. Our children deserve the best. That's why any of us get up every morning and stand in a classroom. That's why I believe that you sit on the diocese, and that's why I believe that they sit behind those tables. To inflate class sizes does not make any sense. Historically, when we've had problems, we have always come together and borne it on our backs. This isn't about teachers and what's hard for teachers. We do hard things every single day. But what's best for children is to not cram them into a room and herd them. Right now, post-COVID, we have long COVID, not just physically, but for our kids academically and educationally. Stacking kids in a room doesn't make any sense any more than putting all of you up there makes any sense. The reality is that when we look at instructional decisions, we're asked to look at data. When you make decisions, maybe you could produce some of that as well. But it can't be a hard line, this is what we want, and this is what we need, and this is how we're moving forward. When we come to the table, our interest is the children. When you sit behind that diocese, your interest is in the children. Historically, our district office has not had that same interest. I do not want us to start pummeling down a hill that takes us back to where we started. We worked too hard to get here, and we put someone in a position to move us forward, not backward. And now our superintendent, our current superintendent, is going to be stepping away. We need her to be replaced by someone who carries that same kind of mindset. And the cabinet that you worked so hard to change has to also have that same mindset. This isn't pointing any fingers, but when the people who just got here decide what we're doing moving forward, that has to factor in what's already been happening here all along and what we have as an interest for our children. Our children in Bellflower Unified School District deserve the best. 30 of them, 35 of them, 38 of them, 40 of them in a classroom, that is not the best.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. May I have Marita Rojas? Did I butcher it? I probably did. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Real briefly, my name is Nereida Rojas Seitz, and I'm a bilingual instructional assistant and a retired teacher. So I'm coming on behalf of classified and certified. And 5 years here with Bellflower. I have worked with the ELD students. And working with them, we have had a big influx in the past few years of many students coming in. And we have had, even right now, 30 students that not just me and our teacher can work with. We need more help, and we need less students in the classroom. They deserve that attention. We have a wide variety of students coming from Vietnam, Philippines, Egypt, and different locations of Latin America. And we are to address all that amount with a high quantity of students. And it's unfair to them. We cannot give them the attention they need when the classes are maxed out. We really need that to be paid attention, because then they get discouraged with their other classes because they're not learning. We do need those classes to be much smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have Aaron Jones to the podium, please? Welcome and thank you for being here, Aaron.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm bumping into you guys. Okay. I'm trying to remember how to address. No, don't start me yet. Okay. Hello,
We'll put 5 seconds back on the
President,
clock.
Board, and Superintendent. I just want to say that my back to school night this year, I was very proud because I got to tell the parents that we now had a theater class, we had music, there were no combos, talk about PE. We've had all these great movements. And so I felt like starting the year, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm finally feeling good, because there's been a lot of jaded feelings in the last few years, just as far as the district and what's been going on for what's best for children. And so, we do have a lot of issues, the behavior. At every elementary campus, we have kids that are running out of classrooms, that are hitting, kicking both adults and children, which is actually something that I wanted to come and just talk about at some point. Anyways, just the behavior, maybe problem solving, finding ways to deal with these kids, because one student can take over your entire class. And a lot of these students are having problems with self-regulation as well. And then obviously with laws passed through California, with the students not having as many consequences, it's just been, and with the mental health crisis that children are experiencing, and the things that we have to now do with students in class, I was really shocked to hear that then we're going to increase, because I feel like we have so many issues just within our contained classes. The behavior is not the same as it was when I started teaching 24 years ago. The mindset, the work ethic, all of it, and I know it's generationally changing, but I mean, there's a lot of issues, and I don't see where having more students in classes will be beneficial at all. And if you've been to the elementary schools, well, I know you have children in there, I don't even know where 38 kids would fit in the classrooms. And also, what if I'm a parent and for some reason, my grade level cohort has 38 every year, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Meanwhile, the other grades alongside of it with those averages have 30. I don't think I would be very angry as a parent to see that and say, why does my child have classes that are so much higher than others? So that's something to think about when we're coming to this average and numbers. And I know that we care about our students, but there's like when you go on a trip and they always say you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help your children. I mean, our mental health also matters. And so when we are already dealing with a lot of adversity right now, it just seems like this is, I mean, I love my students, I love my job, but it's hard, and it's way harder than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And so, I also have to make sure that what's going on with me, that I'm able to stay healthy mentally. So that's another thing to think about. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. May I have Shannon Slager to the podium, please? Welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Or you got a pre-applause on that one. That's great.
Pardon my vocal nodules. Here I go. My name is Shannon Slager, currently a third grade teacher at Ramona Elementary, and this is my 25th year as an educator in this district. I have a passion for this job, and people who know me would say I'm fired up. Throughout my BUSD career, I've served on many district committees, held various leadership roles. Along with the amazing teachers here, I represent what you would consider highly qualified teachers who have devoted our hearts and souls to our students, families, and the administration here in this district. I've taught in every grade, K through 6, and this year I requested to move from 6th grade down to 3rd. When I'm asked why I made that choice, my first response is simply, I can make a greater impact if I go from teaching 34 kids down to 24. I do not feel equipped to successfully facilitate learning for that many humans in one room all day with no aid support, minimal breaks, and no individual planning time. This fired up teacher, I hate to say it, her flame is dwindling. I understand that budget is a motivating factor for your reasoning to consider increasing class sizes. And we're facing many undisputable issues that we all want to solve. But I implore you to ask yourselves this question. How will adding more students to already crowded classrooms solve our issues and benefit teachers and students? Here are a few concerns to consider when you make this decision. Number 1, student enrollment is decreasing as families are opting to go to private schools with smaller class sizes and homeschooling. How will adding more students to classrooms solve this problem? 2, student achievement in all academic areas is at an all-time low in this district, with around 30% proficiency in ELA and even lower in math. How will adding more students to classrooms solve this issue and benefit teachers and students? 3, the special needs of students academically, emotional, and behavioral, they're steadily increasing. The spectrum of diverse needs in our classrooms is beyond overwhelming and nearly impossible to tackle with the limited resources and student numbers that we currently have. How will adding more students to the classroom solve this issue and benefit teachers and students? And finally, I have 37 seconds. Teacher efficacy across this district has severely diminished, and this is so important. We need to define it. It's teachers' confidence in their ability to help students learn and succeed. We want to see positive change, and unfortunately, we need your help. We are in a battle to overcome many challenges and become a thriving district. We want you to help us, empower us, work with us to brainstorm ways to utilize funds creatively and continue to try to solve solutions. Our motto is we build futures. It is represented by a flame and a torch. Please do not snuff our torch.
Thank you, Ms. Slager. May I have Amy Mustafa, please, to the podium. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, President Critchfield, Interim Superintendent Lisa Azevedo, school board members, cabinet, audience. One of the amazing things that BUSD has to offer is high quality education with lower class sizes than the surrounding districts. We need to do a better job of advertising all of the positive things that BUSD has to offer. The smaller class sizes, the no combos, these are things that should be all over social media. After COVID, students have different needs. We're still recovering from the learning loss, and students have a greater need for social emotional learning. Increasing class sizes does not serve BUSD students. The district just implemented the no combo classes this year. Those smaller class sizes are an intervention in itself. We haven't given this the opportunity to be successful. Let's wait and see. Let's get the data on that and see if those programs, the no combo classes and the lower class sizes, are successful. If the goal is keeping students and families together, let's brainstorm other ways to accomplish this. We have increased class sizes in the past to allow families to stay together, and it was not successful. It just moved the bar. The class sizes were higher, and guess what? Once we reached that higher number, we still had to separate families. It didn't work. Now, those families are still being separated. Let's brainstorm other ways to solve this problem instead of raising class sizes. Last school year, BTA, CSEA, admin, and the school board got together through the alliance and devised a plan to implement to limit separating families through the reorganization process. Did we implement this plan? Let's be more proactive instead of reactive. If the purpose of increasing class sizes is financial, I urge you to look at different ways to save money. How many admin do we have in our district? What is the ratio of admin to students? Has this ratio increased? Are the admin directly serving students? When planning the secondary schedules, are the admin getting teacher input? These are just things to think about. I urge you to consider other alternatives than increasing class sizes. BUSD needs to do what is best for students. Solving problems on the backs of the students is not the answer. Thank you.
May I have Robin Baylaw to the to the podium.
All right, sorry, we're negotiating now that we have only a little bit of time. Okay, so good afternoon. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Robin Baylog. I think I know all of you. Thank you for all that you have done to shape our school district and BUSD. We have been plagued for years with an apathetic board, a dysfunctional and poorly staffed district office, high turnover in administration, which leads to broken systems in schools. With the staffing changes that you have made, such as a new superintendent who listens and cares about the community and teachers, new staffing in the district office with fresh ideas, and a new CBO with years of experience and a different way of thinking and looking at our finances, things have been slowly improving. Thank you to the board for all that you do to be available to your community, for responding and looking into concerns and reaching out for the betterment of everyone. I believe that because of the change in leadership under the direction of this board, we're finally moving in the right direction, and that would not be possible without your support. I'm sure that everyone in this room understands how different education is in the current climate. All of us are here to make sure that our students and community are properly served and given the best education possible. Class size is an integral part of a student's success. Adding students to a classroom is never a way to improve education, test scores, or school climate. Smaller class sizes are important to help form relationships, reduce behavior issues, and increase engagement. With so many students struggling with learning loss, mental health issues, and competition with technology, the best thing we can do is try to limit our class sizes responsibly. I understand that certain circumstances, there needs to be flexibility in order for us to add students without adding another classroom. I believe that we can work together to find a solution that is both fiscally responsible and us being good stewards of our students. When we look at our student numbers, BUSD, along with many other districts, has lost a large number of students, over 2,000 in 5 years. However, our staffing ratio does not reflect this loss. We have a student-to-teacher ratio of 17:1, where most districts sit at 20 or 21:1. We're overstaffed with teachers that are not directly tied to students. We do also have an increase in admin, which Amy represented. So this is another area that we could look at that might have a significant fiscal impact. Thank you for all you do to help support our teachers, students, and families in this district. I hope that we can work together to find a solution that will help maintain smaller class sizes while continuing to work and move in the right direction. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Robin. May I have Anne Marie Sharp? Come on down. Welcome and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. I guess I was at the end. Good afternoon, President Critchfield, members of the board, Superintendent Acevedo, members of cabinet, and guests. My name is Anne Marie Sharp, Adapted Physical Education Specialist for Bellflower Unified School District. This is my 25th year in education and 23rd year here at BUSD. I'm a dedicated, passionate, energetic, sometimes misunderstood advocate for children with special needs. 15 years ago, general education teacher Mrs. Boss and myself were joining our classes on a weekly basis before co-teaching existed, at least in our district. I vividly remember a girl standing very far from my students. And Mrs. Boss also noticed this. After class, Mrs. Boss asked her, "What's wrong?" And she would eventually tell us that she was afraid of my students. She was afraid that she was going to catch something from my students. This was very difficult for me to understand. I quickly realized this was an opportunity and a sign that we needed to educate both students and staff about students with different abilities. This is a very small portion of my story of why I became so passionate about teaching students of all abilities in an inclusive physical education environment. My two areas of specialty are physical education and special education. I work best with my students who are the best around. This afternoon, I'm here to advocate for my students. BTA has proposed maintaining the long-standing 1 teacher to 55 students in the physical education environment. It's my understanding the district is proposing to remove that 1 to 55, and that's really disheartening. We've had this understanding that for band and Mr. Phillips and the incredible programs that he runs, it's been an understanding that he can improve that, and you're asking to remove that language. Our facilities can barely support the class sizes we currently have. As everyone knows and has heard, we brought to the attention the state of our facilities. The locker rooms cannot support larger class sizes. We see all over the Facebook parent page all the issues in the locker rooms, and a larger class size would not help that. There's a big difference in teaching versus babysitting. We're hired to teach. I'm not going to get through all my stuff. So
If you need
where
more,
do I go from now?
if you need a little bit more time, we're happy to
You're going to give
add
it to
some
me?
time.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Can we extend it, is an extra 2 minutes okay?
I think that should do it.
Cool.
As a former BTA board member, standing committee member for 4 years, I have to share that I'm shocked and disbelieved about what we are reading regarding special education negotiations. For years, BUSD has employed a legal team, not now, but before, that charged outrageous fees, would not settle cases, and continued to allow leaders in this district to not follow laws when it was brought to their attention time after time. We finally have a level of expertise in this special education leadership, which we have not seen in many, many years. We have made improvements, and now BUSD is suggesting taking away some of that collaboration away. On May 30th, BUSD and BTA agreed to have RSP itinerant teachers that travel, like myself, but I'm not RSP, only at 2 sites, because we had an RSP teacher at 5 sites last year. That is not in the best interest of kids whatsoever. So we had agreed to 2, and now the proposal is to remove that language. We went through HE double hockey sticks during COVID. Our students across the board, my daughter's calling, lost a heck of a lot, and our students in special education suffered immensely. I got to know families on a different level because of COVID, and that's the only thing that I am thankful for. Because without my parents showing up with their students, there was no education going on. The Adult Transition Center, which educates our students with the most needs from 18 to 22, we have a current caseload of 10, and the proposal is to remove that, or it may have been an oversight, so I did want to bring that to the attention. Fiscal responsibility is what we need and what we have always needed. For too long, district leaders have not listened and made poor financial decisions. Our students should not have to suffer at the expense of adult decisions. We should be celebrating the many successes of this district over the last year and a half, and instead we are called to share our frustrations with what is being proposed at the bargaining table. My hope really is we can turn it around and work collaboratively to meet the needs of our students, our district, and get back to celebrating and expressing our gratitude, because that has been an awesome expression this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp, and thank you, everybody, for being so respectful of the time and all your comments. You are heard, and we value you. At this time, we will be adjourning to closed session. Open session will resume at approximately 6 p.m. Have a good night. Good evening, everybody. We will now reconvene open session at 6:09 p.m. Vice President Stewart will provide an update on closed session agenda.
Good evening, everyone. The topics discussed in closed session were student matters, pending litigation, labor negotiations, and public employee discipline dismissal release. No action was taken in closed session.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Replacement pages for items 13.2, 13.8, and 15.1 are on the back table. Tonight, we do have requests addressing agenda and non-agenda items. The request to address the cell phone policy will happen a little bit later when we address that agenda item. While meetings of the governing board are not public meetings, they are open to the public. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board, and the board will limit the total time for public input to 21 minutes as per board bylaw 9322.2, unless otherwise waived by the board. All right, first up, may I have Sonia Posadas to the podium? You're giving me that look like I totally butchered your name. I apologize. Welcome. Oh, I was going to push that. I think it's the button to the right. Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. I am here today to express our appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Sue L. Hessen for her service to the students and parents of Bellflower Unified School District. I have 2 children that attend Bellflower Unified, and one of my 2 children is permanently disabled. Every parent wants to treat their children equally and provide for them equally, but sadly, there are many barriers in society that prevent that. Our son experienced discrimination in many areas of public life, including the school setting. Earlier this school year, the district refused to provide our son reasonable accommodations to participate in a before-school program. We advocated for our son passionately, but local administrators dismissed our concerns and failed to recognize that they were engaging in discrimination. When Dr. Sue learned about our son's situation, she quickly reached out and listened to our son's story. Dr. Sue advocated for our son and ensured his needs were met. Soon after Dr. Sue got involved, our son was able to participate in the before-school program with his peers. Today, our son is happy, thriving, and participating in the before-school program. His school is slowly learning to accept his disability and become an inclusive environment. Dr. Sue, we appreciate your dedication in ensuring that students with disabilities are included and have the same opportunities that are offered to the general education students. Please know that you are truly appreciated and your efforts made a huge impact on our son's journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonia. May I have Marla Bruins to the podium? Where's Marla at?
I'm here.
Where you at?
Is this just open comment?
Non-agenda, yeah? Or are you thinking of speaking on the cell phone policy?
I was going to speak on the cell phone or the digital policy, and then I had another topic. So that's right now.
So you could do the other topic now, and then when the cell phone policy comes up, you can come back up again.
Okay, I didn't know if I needed a thing for that.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Marla Bruins. I have been involved in several ways within the school district, seeing several things happening in the schools I'm at. Things have, with post-COVID, the student needs have greatly increased. And I know that there is on the agenda the contract negotiations. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this now. My concern is if we are potentially increasing the student numbers in the classroom, I don't know how you're legitimately going to fit that many people in the room. I currently see some of the upper grade classrooms that we have now with people, the kids just have this much room to work, first of all. And if you want kids to be creative and expand and be able to do what they need to do, they don't need to be worried about bumping their neighbors all the time or catching the cold because you touched hands or whatever the case may be. And the teacher needs to be able to get around the room to help a student should someone have an emergency for whatever reason. We had the case, sadly, at another school this year where there's a medical emergency. If you can't legally or you can't physically get through the classroom and you are able-bodied, you don't have a boot on your foot, you don't have something that's hindering you, but you can still teach, I don't know how you can help all the students. It kind of prohibits teachers from going back there when they have a question and saying, hey, I need help with this. You, especially in the kindergarten areas, if you put more desks in the room, you're gonna limit centers, you're gonna limit pulling kids aside to help individually at that table the way they're set up now. That's stuff kids need, and especially post-COVID when they're struggling. I know there's lots of things involved, but that's something I want you to consider. If you want to help the kids do their best, it's not putting more kids in the room so that the kid who needs help gets ignored. And unfortunately, and I know this to be true too, I mean, those kids who are doing well, the teacher does know their name, the teacher does see their paper, but if you add 8 more people in the room, that's that much less attention that student can get because one teacher is only one teacher. You can be divided in 32 or 36, but by the time you're getting to 40, you're definitely watered down. So from a parent observing things and a helper at the school observing things, that makes a huge difference. Adding 4 more people per classroom per grade, yes, it'll affect lunch, it'll affect recess, it'll affect all of that. But if you really want the kids to get the best education and to feel comfortable where they're getting their education and to be safe, I think you need to consider how that will affect the classroom, because otherwise you're gonna renovate and that's gonna cost more.
Thank you, Ms. Marla. Okay, Marianne Foote. Come on down, love the hat. There you go. Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, President Crutchfield, Board of Members, Cabinet. And people behind me. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at Lisa. Lisa and I started together here in the school district, and so I know she's passionate about things as I am. I'm here to talk about the proposed size of the student-to-teacher ratio. Right now, I'm a third-year co-teacher. I have at most 29 students in my classroom. I have a seating arrangement of 6 by 5, and this allows me and my co-teacher to have 2 teacher desks and the flexibility to move around and meet the needs of all of our students in the classroom. It's a small classroom. It wasn't designed for this day and age, and we understand that. Our children are large, and their backpacks are large too. And the only space I have in the classroom for their backpacks is underneath. Often, because they're kids, the backpacks end up in the middle of the classroom. If we were to add 5 more desks in my classroom, the desk for the one-on-one aide has to be removed, because I do have one-on-one. I'm also going to have to remove a station center where I have kids have access to all of their paper goods and pencils. Now you add 5 more and you put 40 in there because the proposed maximum is 40 students. I am now restricted. I cannot get to my students in a timely manner to help them when they need help. I feel at this time if we were to add more seats in my classroom, it becomes a safety hazard for me in being able to move around. I would not be able to do the station rotations carefully. And I wouldn't be able to manage the distracting behaviors and the disruption that occurs because we do have to move students away from each other sometimes. I have that space now to do that. My IEP numbers are about 41% in 2 of my classes and 50% in the other. Okay? You put more kids in there, I'm not going to be able to serve them as well as we are this year. And I know our academic grades are up this year with our co-teaching. Okay? It's perfect right now. Let's not change that. Been here for 30 years, and we've worked so hard to make things better for these kids. Let's not go back to the 90s when we had to fight so that this didn't happen again. Also, my experience, I have been a combo teacher. I taught a 5-6 combo and a 7-8 combo. Not good. Let's not go back to that either. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Marion. And before we move on to the agenda, I want to say thank you to everybody who came out to advocate for our kids and each other as teachers. We value you, we hear you, and I want to respect the bargaining process, and I know the conversations are still happening, but I'm sure we'll be able to get some more clarity on some things as we go forward. But I'm still very confident in the direction that we've worked so hard to create in this district. So I, again, thank you. Next time I throw an event, I'm definitely going to have free pizza because it works. Thank you all for being here tonight. All right, do we have any corrections for this evening's agenda?
We do have 2 corrections this evening. Item 12.2, first interim financial statements. Under the recommended action on page 1, it states that it's the second interim report. It's been corrected to read the first interim report. And then correction number 2 is item 12.3, Bellflower Unified School District Foundation members. This item will be tabled and brought back at a later date.
Great, thank you, Ms. Azevedo. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments to the agenda?
Is the amendment to the informational item, is that necessary or no? You handed us a paper on that as well.
That's a replacement page, sorry. It was listed at the top.
Thank you, sorry.
Do I have a motion to approve the changes?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, roll call, please.
Student Member Ojose,
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong,
Aye.
Dr. Alhesson,
Aye.
Ms. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield.
Aye. I will be moving on to recognitions. Do we have any recognition? Oh, wait, no, I almost, edit the tape. All right, we'll now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to call Esther Lindstrom, Assistant Principal, Mr. Josh Stern, to the podium. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Please stand, face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Board President Critchfield, board members, Dr. Acevedo, executive leadership, thank you for having me here. I was given some instructions that I also got to do the inspirational message, and I was told to keep it brief. So I will do that. And
Actually, you're going to come up in just 1 minute. We have one more thing right before.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, you got a two-part. No, stick around. There's pizza. Stick around. We have some recognitions. Then we're going to jump right back to you. Ms. Azevedo, do you have any recognitions this evening?
We do have recognitions. Can I ask the board to please come down from the dais up to the front? This evening, we will be recognizing Dr. Sue Alhesson for her service as a Bellflower Unified School District board member. At this time, the board, the superintendent, the office staff, and cabinet would like to present you with a token of appreciation as a thank you for your term as a board member. We have two things for you. Sue was elected to board in 2013 and served through 2018. She was elected for a second term in 2020 and is completing her term of service tonight. Dr. Sue Hessen has worked with multiple board members, staff, administration, and superintendents during her time of service. We thank her for her time and have a video to share with everyone. So if we can get everyone to turn their attention to the screen, we have a short video. If we can get a quick picture.
One more.
Thank you. And then I understand that we may have a guest or two here this evening. So if we do, if you'd like to come up to the podium, you're welcome to do so right now. Actually, maybe just for a minute.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members, cabinet, community members. I would like to present, I call her Dr. Sue, but I would like to present Dr. Sue L. Hessen with the Certificate of Appreciation from Cerritos College. My name is Dawn Green, and I represent the Board of Trustees. And in grateful appreciation for your dedication, service, and leadership as board member of the Bellflower Unified School District Board of Education and your partnership in education with Cerritos College, we thank you. Cerritos College Board of Trustees, our president is Mariana Pacheco. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Dr. Sue, thank you for being a strong supporter of the CalAPS program during my time of service as the CEO, and we wish you well. Okay, it looks like we have one more. Two more. Come on up.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Supervisor Janice Hahn to join our superintendent, board, and community members tonight as you recognize Dr. Sue Alhassan. And Dr. Sue, we want to recognize your tireless efforts. They have not gone unnoticed. And I would like to present you with a scroll from Supervisor Hahn, and it reads, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles, I, Janice Hahn, Supervisor, 4th District, commend you for your leadership and dedicated service as a board member of Bellflower Unified School District. As you move forward, we really want to wholeheartedly thank you for your 9 years of service and wish you all the best as you move forward. So congratulations and thank you again.
Okay, we have one more.
All right, good evening. BTA would just like to thank Dr. Sue for her many years of service to the students, teachers, and community of the Bellflower Unified School District. We know that being on the board is a big dedication of time and a commitment that often goes unnoticed, so thank you for your service.
One, two, three.
And that concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you. Absolutely. You have someone that wants to come and take a picture? I was going to say, let's get a picture. Should I warn Mr. Stern that he needs to get ready pretty soon?
No, I'm building up the anticipation because he knows it's coming up next.
Okay.
All right. Now we'll do presentations from staff, students, and community. Mr. Stern will highlight this month's Student Spotlight. For real this time. Welcome.
All right, thank you. I thought I was going to do the inspirational message before, and I looked up one of my favorites. My wife calls her her boyfriend, Simon Sinek. He's got a lot of great inspirational information out there, and he spoke about the difference between optimism and positivity, and inspiration versus motivation. And I just wanted to share that with you before I did my student spotlight, because motivation is something that we all strive to have. We get, Some people have this natural intrinsic motivation. Some people get motivated by the carrot that's out there, their parents that threaten to take something away if they don't get the grades, and that's motivating to them. The motivation for just acknowledgement, but that comes and goes. The inspiration it's that flame up there that we see. It's an internal flame that goes on, and it burns inside of us, and that's what pushes us to dream and to see the light through the darkness of the tunnel. There are times when someone says, stay positive, and you just can't. But the inspiration that we have helps us remain our optimism around those dark times, when we're in those dark tunnels, when there's differing sides of things, and it's difficult to see through it, but we realize that inspiration that's inside of us, that flame that exists within the Bellflower logo that we have right there, that flame inside of us keeps moving towards that light and seeing it no matter what the darkness is that surrounds us. And when I saw this, this message about inspiration and optimism, it really was a natural segue for me to introduce Michael Lopez. That guy right there, come on up. So, Michael is joined by his mothers, Erica and Vanessa, and his brother, Jacob. And when the idea of a student spotlight came up, who are we going to choose? The choice was pretty simple because everybody was roaring, if you will, about Michael Lopez, about what a great kid he is. His first grade teachers, let's see if this works. Next. There we go. He's a man of many activities. He has a lot of things that he loves to do. Can I get the next slide? Michael, from his first grade teacher, Ms. Kleiber, says, "It was a joy having Michael in my first grade class. He was a hard worker, always wanted to help others. He thrived on responsibility, and it was so wonderful to see the wonderful young man that he is growing up to be." You're welcome. Miss Moses, his third grade teacher, said, "Michael was in my third grade classroom. I remember a polite, friendly boy with a great smile and a positive attitude. He was willing to dive into any project with enthusiasm and loved to learn." Next slide. "He demonstrated a love of technology and helped keep our Chromebooks in order each day." I might have to hire you for that one. "I recommended him as a Friday morning assembly techie with Mr. Tim because I knew Michael would be responsible as well as proficient in the skills Mr. Tim would be teaching him. I'm also so proud of Michael's accomplishments." Moving up to one of our intervention teachers, Mr. Hedgepeth, who helps Mr. Tim. "Michael has been a vital part of our Lindstrom sound crew for years. He learned these complex skills under the tutelage of Mr. Tim Tuula, his older brother Jacob. He has been invaluable to our school site, making sure we have sound and microphones ready for every event. He does this without complaint. He takes the job seriously and does it extremely well. Our school is beyond lucky to have such a talented, intelligent, helpful young man who makes good things happen at our school. Way to go, Michael." I had teachers coming up to me saying, "Do you have enough information? Do you want me to give you something else?" Because they kept on talking about how much they loved you and how proud they were of you. And I'm going to cap it off with your sixth grade teacher, Miss McQuaid. "He is a gift to any classroom, school, and or community. He is reliable and always first to volunteer with a smile. He is first to be the new kid's friend and spends the entire day escorting that student around. Michael notices the details in the classroom environment and acts accordingly. Michael is an engaged learner and advocates for his own education. He's not afraid to stop the teacher and ask questions. His positive disposition is contagious to those around him. On the playground, he is inclusive to all that want to join and play. His leadership skills are natural and flow with ease. Michael's confidence is supported with humility. It is no wonder that his peers voted him as the ASB president." Michael, when I think about that flame and I think about the inspiration inside, you're the type of person that provides inspiration for others because you set such a great example for us at Lindstrom and everybody in Bellflower Unified.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, but before you go too far, Michael, why don't you hop on the mic there for a second? Tell me, what's your favorite thing about going to Lindstrom?
Helping other kids.
There we go. All right, is this your first time ever attending a board meeting?
Yes.
Is it exciting?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's free pizza, so it's great. Thank you for being here, Michael. We really appreciate you. Keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you. Tell Tori I said hi.
I will. Thanks, bud. Oh wait, we need a we need a picture so I can show Tori. So why don't you come on up, all of you, if you will. We'll take a group picture with the board.
Yes, please. If you're Michael's teacher, come up to the front for a picture.
All right, and at this time, I would like to welcome our student board reporters. Representing Bellflower High School is Stephen Martinez. Welcome, Stephen.
Good evening, Board President Critchfield, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Ms. Acevedo, guests, and fellow students. I'm Stephen Martinez. This will be Bellflower's December board report. So starting off, we're going to be we'll be covering our gingerbread house building event that was actually this Tuesday, where PTSA hosted this event where students and members of the community can come out and build a free gingerbread house. So you can see that there was students and families that came out and built some gingerbread houses. All those who participated were entered into a raffle to win multiple prizes, such as that movie bucket in the top left. And now I'd like to cover Ensemble, which started off their holiday season on December 4th at their Holiday Coffee House, which is an annual event to showcase their program in a holiday style. Those who went were able to get desserts, hot chocolate, and obviously listen to them sing. They also performed at the Bellflower Street Lighting Ceremony on the 6th alongside Mayfair. And sorry, no, I didn't mean it in that way. I didn't mean it in that way. I was trying to go on to the next line. On December 7th, they participated in the Disney Candlelight Processional event along with their alumni. Alongside the rest of the vocal department, they will be performing tonight at the Winterfest concert. So currently our Penny Wars has raised over $200 for the local Bellflower community, which helps families in need, and we also have students who at Bellflower which do receive this funding that does go to the city. This event is a twist to the traditional money or canned food drives, which specifically this event helps students engage more. And our upcoming events are our holiday parade and our winter snack rally. Our holiday parade is an annual parade which we host inside the school throughout the hallways, where students come out of the class to watch this parade on the last day before winter break. In the parade, there are organizations such as cheer, band, our classes. They come out, perform in the parade just to showcase everything for the first semester. And then for the winter snack rally, different groups perform at this rally, and we also play games such as musical chairs. I would also like to showcase our 605 band. Bellflower's marching band is proud to be a part of the 605 band for this New Year's Rose Parade. Earlier this month, they had their practice parade starting at Ron Yeri Stadium and going all the way to Mayfair Park, which seen on the left. And then they were also able to participate in Southgate's parade, where they showcased their new uniforms as seen on the right. The band also received third place, receiving bronze at the 3A Championships in Long Beach City College on November 25th. I would also like to congratulate current board clerk, Mrs. Garza, on winning re-election and welcoming Ms. Cintron to Bellflower Unified. I also want to congratulate Dr. Sue L. Hessen for the years of service to Bellflower Unified. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And representing Mayfair High School, Gil Friedman.
Good evening, President Critchfield, Interim Superintendent Ms. Acevedo, board members, and district colleagues. Oops. All right, so starting off with academics, Mr. Keanu Lambert was awarded the Every Student Succeeds Award. He was at a low point. He was going through a lot, but he still prevailed, and he was awarded a $250 scholarship and a Chromebook. First quarter honor roll that began today, and we had more than 1,300 students with the 3.0 GPA and higher, which is super awesome. And final exams are kicking off next week, the 18th through the 20th. All right, for athletics, we wanted to highlight the Unified Soons, the Unified program, and Unified Cheer. They had the Hoops tournament on December 6th. It was a great event, good times. Lots of schools came out and played. And we're gonna update the winter CIF sports in January, but I wanted to highlight Courtney Cummings. She was the first player to be nominated to play on the LA County All-Star team at the Charger Stadium. So that was super cool. For the arts, we wanted to highlight the 605 Band Parade, which was throughout the community of Bellflower and Lakewood. They had their practice parade, and it was super cool. I mean, it was a great opportunity. So awesome to see the communities come out and watch. That walk was rough, and I'm glad that I'm not doing that again in the actual parade. But here's a little video on that.
High school bands are gearing up for the big one. KCAL News photographer Assad Khalilzadeh shows us the practice routine in Bellflower as students get ready for the Tournament of Roses parade.
Today it's kind of like a test drive. One of my goals in my career was to always take a band to the Rose Parade. To do the Rose Parade, you have to be pretty big. I invited 7 friends out to dinner and said, hey, I want to do the Rose Parade. Would you partner with us? And let's put a band together.
It's important that we acknowledge the efforts of our local Southern Californians. And this was such a unique concept, a composite band of 8 local area high schools that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to march in the parade. We were absolutely intrigued. We're so excited.
Learning how to take 540 kids and merge them into being a marching band who have never existed before. So that's the challenge.
It's definitely
more of a culture shock per se. All these bands have their own cultures, you know, they have their own way of doing things.
We're still learning who the kids are. I mean, I know my kids, but I don't know the others. And so we're going to get to know each other over this next month and hopefully build a great relationship. And it's just going to be fun along the way.
The 605 Band is one of the largest to ever play in the Rose Parade. Today's practice stretched from Bellflower to Lakewood over a 4-mile route.
Yeah, so congratulations to them for that. Our choir, our maritime, our show choirs have our first concerts December 18th and 19th next week at the Bellflower Civic Center, so check that out if you can. All right, so for activities, our choirs, not only did we go to Bellflower tree lighting, we also did Lakewood tree lighting, and I think they sounded terrific. But we will redeem ourselves next week, so check out those concerts. You're gonna love it. We also had pictures with Santa. You can see him in that bottom corner. Snowfest, which was the middle school dance, looked, they said, pretty lit. And movie night tomorrow night, they're showcasing The Grinch, so if you're available, come out, it's free. All right, well, a special thank you to President Critchfield for your service on the board. You're always a light to the district. I remember meeting you a couple years back at the opening of our STEAM building, and you gave me some pretty good advice on my first campaign for class presidency. So thank you for that, and thank you for everything you've done. All right, don't forget to stay connected. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Mayfair_BUSD. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gil. And representing Somerset High School is Jay Torres. Take it away.
Good evening, President Crutchfield, members of the board, Superintendent Azevedo, and guests. My name is Jay Torres, and I am a senior in ASB and the student board reporter for Somerset High School. This evening, I will be sharing with you our latest activities at Somerset and up-and-coming events too. I would like to introduce some new staff members at Somerset High School. We have a new wellness counselor, Ms. Lauren Dillard, who is with us on Mondays and Fridays to support students in the Wellness Center. We also have a new community service worker, Ms. Stephanie Garcia. She is here to help students and families with community resources. We are excited to have them both here to help. Thank you to everyone who made it to Turkey Day at the Kiwanis Hall. The community donated $505 for our student scholarship fund and plenty of donated canned goods for people in the community. The ASB students enjoyed serving you and spending time celebrating with one another. Somerset applied to be a model continuation high school back in September, and we were selected for a verification visit. The team came to our school last week and spent 2 days observing classroom instruction and extracurricular activities. They also spent a lot of time talking with students, teachers, parents, and district office leadership. They said they were impressed by what they saw at Somerset. The report they sent to the Department of Education determines whether we will continue to be recognized as a model school. We will find out in the spring if we earn the award. This week, students got to hear a presentation from the Air Force about taking the ASVAB and the value that one can earn from a military career after high school. Before we head off for our winter break, we are looking forward to some fun activities. The ASB is planning dress-up days and fun events. Monday is PJ Day, and we plan to play musical chairs. Tuesday, we are wearing Santa hats and drinking hot cocoa. Wednesday, there will be a kickball competition between the teachers and students. Thursday, we will be wearing our ugly holiday sweaters. And Friday, we are making Christmas cookies. Finally, we are wrapping up the year with a food drive. If you would like to contribute any items, you can drop them off during school hours any day between now and December 19th. Thank you for supporting Somerset High School, and we wish you a happy holiday season, and we will see you back on January 7th, 2025 for Block 5.
Stephen Gilj, thank you again very much. And remember, you can stay for the whole meeting. But at this time, if you'd like to get back to your school obligations, you're free to go. But thank you guys for your reports. One more round of applause for our student reporters. All right, it is now time for stakeholder communications. May I have BTA President, Ms. Carrie McDaniel, come on down to the podium. Thank you for being here, Carrie.
Good evening, President Critchfield, Interim Superintendent Mrs. Azevedo, Board, Cabinet, members of the community. Tonight I want to talk about the importance of documented student behaviors in ARIES. There are a few things I get emails about a lot, and this is one of them. The high schools have access to adding documentation on student behaviors, but most of the elementary teachers do not. And I don't understand why that is. We are professional teachers. Why does one group have access when the others do not? I have received emails from teachers who ask, what do I do after I've written the student up, held a parent conference, talked to the admin, and the behavior doesn't change? What is next? I've gotten emails from teachers who say, if we don't create our own Google form and document student behaviors, there would be no record because what is written on paper or referrals never make it into ARIES. This has been an issue for several years. If there's worry about what kinds of things or words we want teachers to use, let's train them. But not documenting behaviors ever makes it look like there are no issues. We shouldn't be afraid of what the dashboard reports, or if we are, then we need better interventions in place and a system that teachers know that from 1 to 10, this is where the behavior falls, this is what the wording goes in ARIES, and this is the consequence. I urge you to look into this and come up with a plan. Tonight's open forum on cell phones is very important. Studies have shown that humans are distracted by their phones. I know I am. I urge you to create a policy that supports the teachers who take phones away if that's their policy, and supports the administration to stand up for the teacher if the parents complain. We have become a society of immediacy, and I think that we can all admit that if there's an emergency, we're going to be on our phones. Over the years, cell phones have caused a lot of issues. No one can tell your tone, they can't see your facial expressions, and it makes it easy to say things that one might not normally say because they're not directly in front of you. Our students need to talk to each other at snack and lunch, not take up in a corner and put their eyes on a screen. Create a cell phone policy that addresses the learning environment and teaches responsibility. I was having a conversation the other day with a teacher, and we were talking about the importance of libraries. We have so many students struggling with reading. Are we promoting the love of reading at an early age? Are our libraries open all day with staff for students to come in and choose a book, see a book full of a room full of books, and embrace the love of reading? When they get to middle school, it's hard to instill the love of reading if they have spent 6 years only reading for information and not for pleasure. Libraries are important. I urge you to take a visit I urge you all to take a visit to our site libraries and ask what are they offering our students. Finally, I will close on negotiations. As BTA president, I represent over 500 teachers in this district. I am not in the room during bargaining, and I have to rely on what the people in that room tell me. BTA relies on our bargaining team to do what is right for all of our members. I would just like to say that increasing class size at any level is a sensitive topic. I encourage all of you to make some time to visit our classrooms. Don't tell anyone you're coming, just show up. See what is going on in classrooms across the district on a daily basis. I think you might get a better picture of what teachers are facing, and maybe then the district can understand why increasing class size is not what's best for students or teachers. On a side note, I know that I hope that everyone has a wonderful winter break, and I hope that 2025 is good for all of us. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Carrie. Can I have PTA President Linda Morgan?
I'm sorry, can we follow up on the libraries to find out if they're open all day and the questions that she asked, please?
Yes.
Can I, one more time. Linda Morgan, come on up.
Okay, can I have that one? Awesome, love it. Good evening, everybody. Board President Critchfield, board members, Interim Superintendent Azevedo, cabinet, and a room full of people. Not used to that. I missed last month's meeting, and I apologize. I kept some of the slides, and I will briefly share some of those photos that I had collected with you guys. And so, okay, so this was last month's membership numbers, our PTA members, over 2,100 members, and the breakdown from parents, students, teachers. And then on the right, it shows you those that have actually had 100% teacher members. They all joined. So speaking of our teachers, gotta go there, right? Thank you everyone for being here tonight and advocating for our students and sharing your concerns. And I wanna thank the board and staff for listening and hopefully continue the collaboration and come up with the best solution that serves our students best. Sorry, had to. It was Thanksgiving, you know, and we're continuing the season of gratitude. So I wanted to share those that joined all 12 of our PTAs. Your continued support is really appreciated. We had Red Ribbon Week, the anti-drug campaign. And so these are pictures of each of our sites. Mrs. Garza was part of our group that toured all the sites, got to see everything that our sites did, our PTA said, there we go, sorry. I know it's a long meeting, so I'm trying to go through them, but I mean, I collected a bunch of pictures. It was an awesome week, an awesome day to be able to visit them, and I want to thank all our volunteers for all their hard work and dedication. Fall, all of our PTAs and PTSA hosted a fall event, whether it was a trunk or treat, a fall festival, you know, providing a safe space for families to come together or a community come together and celebrate the season. Where am I clicking? Okay. They also had Veterans Day events and our Reflections Arts Program celebrations. Students were recognized at each school site for their artwork that they submitted. Okay, so this may send last month. So I hope you all enjoyed the Thanksgiving break with your loved ones. And then as we're almost halfway into the school year of supporting our students and enriching our school community, I just wanted to take a moment and recognize the incredible work being done all around on behalf of our students and families. As PTAs, every event that we organize, every fundraiser we run, every meeting we hold gets us one step closer to creating a school environment where our kids can thrive. And thank you all for your passion and commitment to our students. We held last week, we held our Red Ribbon Week recognitions. So the site visits and the judges' comments took those all in consideration, and we were able to recognize our sites for all the hard work based on, you know, student awareness, community involvement, their posters, and then our top 3 schools were actually ILC, Esther Lindstrom, and the overall winner was Frankie Woodruff Elementary PTA. And I will just continue. So this month we are at about 2,200 members. We had additional schools where 100% of the teachers joined our PTA. So for those that are actually watching, it's Craig Williams PTA, Woodruff PTA, Stephen Foster, Thomas Jefferson, Washington Elementary, and Albert Baxter PTA. I realize that not everybody watching gets to see all the photos and the slides, so I wanted to get the shout out. So yes, like I said, 2,200 members. Our goal for this year is 3,000. So if you haven't joined, join one or join all. Please help us reach our goal. Just as a comparison, last year we had 2,400. So I think we can do it. We're already at 22. And then to celebrate the winter holidays, a lot of our sites are having their events, whether it's a winter dance, festival, movie night, pajama dress-up days. They are hosting food drives, toy drives, and doing the holiday toy shop where the students can shop for their families. But it's different at each site, so please check it out. And then a little ways away, but I shared some pictures on the Reflections Art Program that they did at the school sites. Our council has collected all the winning entries, and we are doing our own Reflections Awards Night on March 4th of 2025. Everyone's invited. And then quickly wanted to share our appreciation on behalf of Bellflower Council PTAs for your continued support all these years and for all your service and dedication to our students in Bellflower Unified School District. And that is it. Again, lots of gratitude to everyone. Wishing you a wonderful holiday season with your family, and I'll see you all next year.
Thank you, Linda. And now we have CSEA Communications Officer Anthony Ramirez. Come on down. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Board President Critchfield, board members, Interim Superintendent Azevedo, cabinet members, welcome. Happy holidays, everyone. A couple of brief notes for the CSEA update this month. CSEA Chapter President Michelle Cuellar and CSEA Labor Rep Dotu Olodontis have met with Superintendent Azevedo and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Smith concerning nutrition service hours, sick leave bank, retirement issues, and some personnel issues. Our chapter president also met with Assistant Superintendent Alma Ualoa and Dr. Ryan regarding some personnel issues and some very serious special education aid issues. So we're happy that we're continuing that dialogue. President Cuellar attended public comprehensive school safety plan meetings at Thomas Jefferson, Washington, and Los Flores schools. All of those were very informative. We were unable to attend too many more, but there were some scheduling conflicts. She also met with Board President Critchfield and had conversations with Board Member Stewart and Garza, and we're happy that those are continuing to express some ongoing dialogue as well. CSEA is scheduled to resume bargaining negotiations on December 18th. We look forward to the next Alliance Committee meeting that is scheduled in January. And we also attended the recent Personnel Commission meeting where they announced the new Classified Personnel Executive Director, and we are very much looking forward to working with him. And during this holiday season, classified employees across the district helped almost all of our schools set up for their holiday shows, and a lot of them personally assisted the students with their performances. So we're happy that classified employees are demonstrating engagement across every campus here. I want to sidetrack a little bit here, and I have a couple of notes for the upcoming public hearing that you're going to have, and I just wanted to get these out ahead of that. CSEA has a very compelling interest in exactly how and when any board policy is enforced. We would like to see uniform, standardized training and instruction for all relevant employees who may have to directly or indirectly enforce any policy and or report any violations. We would expect a clear and consistent mandate to be communicated at the district level and across every site. In addition, CSEA would like to have some clear reassurances that all employees being directed to enforce any part of this policy to have the full backing and support of the district administration. CSEA is aware that some families and students may not fully agree with any enforced limits on student cell phone use. But if a serious safety crisis or an emergency were to occur, we don't want classified employees to be personally subjected to whatever it is, public outcry, unhappiness, any type of liability, right? We would like some reassurances that the district administration and the board have our backs as we enforce something that you decide to craft. That's a brief report from me. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. At this time, the board will be taking a 5-minute wellness break, and we will re-adjourn at 7:15. All right, we will now re-adjourn for open session at 7:19 p.m., and we will be moving on to our superintendent's report. Mrs. Acevedo.
Thank you. The 2024 school year is coming to an end rapidly before us. Our students have 6 more days until winter break, which just seems so fast. We're approaching the end of the fall semester, so I encourage all of our students to stay focused and finish strong. As the holiday season brings our community together, I want to take a moment to celebrate the diversity of our Bellflower family and the many traditions that make this time so special. Whether you're observing Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Las Posadas, or another celebration, this season reminds us of the joy, peace, and friendship we share. May your holidays be filled with warmth, laughter, and love alongside friends and family. And before I conclude my comments this evening, I'd like to address the messages that we've been receiving regarding negotiations with the Bellflower Teachers Association. I'd like to remind everyone in our community that on August 13th, I spoke about BUSD being known for its family feel. I shared how we celebrate together, and sometimes we disagree with each other. But I also spoke about coming back together to support one another. Negotiations are often a time where groups may disagree for a period of time. But the goal of negotiations is to work together to come back and support one another through an agreement between both parties. This continues to be my expectation for this district moving forward, and my expectation is that we'll continue to move through this process in a collaborative manner. In conclusion, I look forward to a bright and promising new year in 2025, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Acevedo. All right, it's now time for the public hearing on agenda item 11.1, Board Policy 5131.8, Mobile Communication Devices. While meetings of the governing board are not public meetings, they are open to the public. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item or on the item, and the board will limit the total time. Actually, no, we don't do that part. Okay, if anybody is in favor of the policy, now would be the time where you can come up to the podium and feel free to speak. You don't need a card for this one. If you're in favor of the policy, now is the time you can come up and speak. No. It's after. After.
Mr. Critchfield, can I back you up just for a second? Did we declare the public hearing open?
Oh, you're right. Got to do the power of the gavel. Yeah, you have to do that. We got to rewind the whole thing. I declare this public hearing now open. So formal. Dan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for declaring. Good evening, President Critchfield, School Board, Superintendent Acevedo, district staff, and community members. Thank you for dedicating the time to address this critical topic of cell phone usage during the school day. Dr. Smith presented data last meeting that phone usage in elementary schools is less problematic as fewer students own phones and family restrictions are greater. However, in secondary schools, most students have phones with very little restrictions. This increased access, combined with the developmental stage of secondary school students, creates significant challenges. With that in mind, on Monday, December 9th, we surveyed Mayfair's teachers about cell phone usage. 68 teachers responded, which is 57% of Mayfair staff and roughly 1/3 of all secondary teachers in the district. The data is clear. 98.5% of respondents believe that cell phone usage during instructional time negatively affects academic performance. The survey also highlighted specific concerns about student cell phone usage during the day. 100% of those 68 teachers agree that cell phones increase inappropriate activities, such as meetups for fights, romantic hookups, gambling, and even vaping and drug use. 98% agree that cell phone use contributes to cyberbullying, including social media posts about students and teachers or taking unsolicited photos and videos. 94% agree that cell phones use negatively affects student mental health and decreases in-person social interaction. When asked about potential solutions, respondents expressed varying preferences. 53% support limiting cell phone use to non-instructional time. 42% favor an even stronger approach, restricting phones to only before or after school. And that's 95% of the respondents. If students are permitted to use phones at break times, 58% of respondents suggest requiring students to use their phones only in designated areas to decrease cyberbullying and videotaping of fights. Beyond the numbers, the additional comments reveal a common theme. Educators need support to implement and enforce a cohesive policy. Many emphasize the importance of a uniform, district-wide approach, one that is both feasible and consistent across all schools, with everyone from district admin to principals, to classified, to teachers, all being held accountable to do their individual parts. Moving forward, it is critical that we develop a modern, comprehensive, and enforceable district policy that prioritizes not only student learning, but also student well-being, while offering practical tools for implementation. With your guidance and support, we are ready to do our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Would anybody else like to speak?
I'm a parent of two teenagers, one in Long Beach Unified and one in Bellflower Unified, and what I can tell you is when cell phones came into existence, I think it was one of the most dangerous things that we gave to children. It's probably more dangerous than other kind of weapons because they weaponize it. I've watched my own children go into the bathroom where a teacher can't go and there's a fight going on where they videotape the fight. They meet up and do it and then they post it. The things that are happening on the campuses that these children are taping, they aren't just doing it in secret, they're then posting it to something that's gonna follow them for the rest of their lives. I think I applaud the board. I know this is gonna be very difficult to unpack because right now the inmates have taken over the asylum and they're not gonna go quietly and they're not gonna give the phones up very easily. I think they're gonna be very savvy. They're probably they're more astute with how to handle technology than we are. And so it's gonna be difficult to get that wrangled in, but it's very important that we do that because they're children. Lest we forget they're children. And we put something into their hands and into their pockets that's given them access to adult material, adult content, adult communication, and they aren't ready for it, my own children included. And I can take things away from them. They can wipe their whole history on things. This has been a problem for a long time. We were remiss to allow them to just come into our schools in the first place. It's going to be very difficult to get them back out of the schools, but I would really like our district to be very mindful of how we go about doing that, the messaging forward, and how we're going to handle, I don't want to say confiscating, but putting those things into a safe space so that they don't get stolen from other children and so that they're not putting them and hiding them in other places. It just then becomes contraband. So I would really value that. I have a tutor for my children who teaches in a classroom in Long Beach, and when they came in to observe her, they said, "You're not teaching these kids." And she said, "They're all on their phones. You have literally no policy, so I have no authority in the classroom. So when they come in, if they're interested in learning, then I can teach them." But at this point, those devices need to be put away. It was hard enough having computers in our classroom because they can navigate it away from that. I'm grateful that Mayfair at least now has Go Guardian where there's some eyes on them, but we should be controlling the media that they have in front of them, and we should be controlling what we allow them to see. And when they have their phones, that is absolutely impossible. So moving forward, this is going to be a difficult task, but it's really, really a necessary one. And while you're at it, we have agency aides who apparently, just like our children, think that their phones are an appendage. That's very difficult for us to have them not put them away because the safety of our kids then gets called into question when the people who are supposed to be supervising them are like this. It's fine if they're doing it on their break, but their break is not any time that the children are within eyeshot and then out of eyeshot and then their phone beeps or rings or whatever. So it's not just a kid problem. This is a problem that's a little bit larger than that, and it needs to be addressed as well.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Marla Bruins, come on down.
So I guess
I'm sorry, Marla, real quick. Sir, the comments, can you keep them to yourself? If you're going to be disruptive, I'm going to have you leave the room. Thank you. Keep going, Marla.
I have several different perspectives on this. First of all, I would like clear implementation, like the CSA said, and to outside agencies, the district needs to communicate to them what the cell phone policies are, how they are supposed to implement those. I actually work for an outside agency in the district. Does that make sense? And that information doesn't always get relayed to us. I find it through my principals because I have a really good working relationship, but my boss at the agency doesn't tell me. Does that make sense? So we need to make sure that communication is happening as well. If we get to that point where we have to need clear guidelines so that when whoever is interacting with this child, we don't get our authority taken away, if that makes sense, by someone else saying, oh, no, you did that incorrectly. I need clear guidelines on how that's happening. From a parent perspective, yes, I think they need to be put up in the classroom so that the kids can learn. They're not being distracted by their neighbor on whatever it is. Keeping them safe so if there is an emergency. One thing I didn't notice in this report that I printed out is dealing with those who have mental health issues. Some of those students who have panic attacks or anxiety levels have something with them on their phone. So is that covered under health, number 3, students' health as determined? Because it just says licensed physician. I don't know if a psychiatrist would be covered in that. So that's something I wanted to note. Yes, we all feel like there are appendages. That's our security blanket that Linus used to carry around. So we have to address that as well. But my request is clear guidelines. Yes, I would like to see them out of the classroom so that all students can learn. Because if you have ADHD, whatever's going on in the corner is going to be catching your attention. And please speak with outside agencies so that we have clear direction as well, whether it's the aides coming in to help with the students or those supervising the children during the day.
Thank you, Marla. I saw you jumping up earlier. Come on down. Welcome.
Thank you. Whoa, hold on a second here.
I have that problem all the time. How high can it go?
There we go. Hi, my name is Rob Kamstra, and I am currently teaching at Washington Elementary School, 3rd grade. I believe cell phones have a place, especially in an area whereby emergencies need immediate attention. However, students do not need the cell phone during this time. At Washington School, we have a caring staff who can notify parents and guardians in the case of emergencies. The student should not have this privilege. Please consider a platform which turns off all cell phones of students as they enter in each BUSD school or require students to deposit them somewhere so they are not able to use them while they are on the school campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on this one? Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah. Come on over. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you to the board and the president. I teach English and ELD at Bellflower High School. I have a very strict cell phone policy. I also have 38 kids in my 12th grade senior class. I take phones away, but it's a war of attrition. I use GoGuardian religiously, but they can thwart GoGuardian by simply using their phone. So in comparison to that, I have ELD classes that average about 25, and there's no cell phones out in those classes. Their performance outperforms the seniors by at least double digits. So it really, when I think about increasing class sizes, the cell phone equation comes in. There's no way, I have a co-teacher as well, we constantly are taking phones away. We cannot constantly monitor, and there is a part of personal responsibility. It's frustrating because I love technology. I'm pretty adept at it. I like to stay one step in front of the kids. I love it, it's a tool, and I've used it in the classroom. But again, it comes down to sheer numbers. And the other consideration is consistent and fair enforcement of cell phone compensation. I have witnessed administrators giving phones back to kids who had them out during state testing, while other kids are harsh and require their parents to come pick up their phone. So fair enforcement across the board. IEP considerations, you have to live with that law. So if it's in the IEP, as a classroom teacher, I can live with that. I can enforce cell phone policy in my classroom and keep it as cell-free as much as I can. But when there are serious violations or continual violations, and administration doesn't have the spine to do anything about it and hold people accountable. They say consequences don't work. Consequences get me to come to my job every day because poverty is not an option. I don't drive my motorcycle down the 91 doing 100 miles an hour. I could, but consequences keep me from doing it. You know, so there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It's easy to say no cell phones in the classroom, but without the support of the administration, it's sort of a moot point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak?
And
All right, welcome.
just to let you know, we have one that's submitted via email that we need to read to you when you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Madam Interim Superintendent, Cabinet, and guests. My name is Caroline Thompson, and I'm the District Behavior Intervention Specialist. Tonight, I am speaking on the potential cell phone policy. I want to start with the scary fact. The typical American spends 11 hours per day interacting with digital devices and not fleshy objects. We check our phones 150 times per day. How our brains learn to be human and compassionate, it takes human connection for that. Interacting and socializing with others have a physiological impact. We learn to regulate our emotions via social connection. We are essentially shooting ourselves in the foot. Every time we wake away from a human being to attend to a device, we are losing the ability to regulate. And we do this 150 times per day. It's no wonder our schools are experiencing a massive explosion of behavioral problems. Our students are not learning to regulate themselves because their faces are in digital devices all day. I hope to make your job a little easier and not harder by providing data like this. I have the lovely benefit of being in classrooms all day. I support every school site, and I've been in most classrooms. I stand at the back of the class, I just watch, and I'm collecting data. And when I say I love my job, it's an understatement. So whatever our district decides to do, I'm here for it, I'm gonna gear up, and I'll be the first in the line to enforce. But the hardest part of my job, it's seeing the look of defeat in some of the students who are coming to school prepared. These students want to be there, they want to learn, they want to engage, and all it takes is one peer to cause major disruptions because they can't control themselves around technology. It breaks my heart to see the look on teachers' faces. They look at me and they're like saying, help me, please, what do I do? If we are gonna do this, if we're gonna do this and have a ban, we need to call in the reinforcements because we're gonna need more security. Part of my job includes responding to crisis calls for students who have lost control. If a student is eloping the campus, destroying the classroom, or attacking their teacher, I get called, or one of our 22 hardworking behavior assistants. Sometimes I conduct assessments for these students, and the majority of our secondary students that I was called to assess the primary behavior of concern, inappropriate cell phone use. I'm here tonight to advocate for a balanced approach to cell phone use. I firmly believe whatever policy we put in place, consistency will be key. We already have a pseudo ban in effect for classrooms, and it is not being followed. This week, I received an email about a secondary student who refused to put his phone away. He stated, "It is my property and I do not have to comply." He later added, "I will never comply with putting my phone away." When asked how his parents felt, I was told the grandparents are not supportive and they're afraid of him. The student then stated, "If my grandparents take my phone away, it will be hell." So my question is, who is going to take this student's phone away? I have a lot more, but no more time.
I make a motion to allow her to continue.
That's fine.
Can I get a second?
It's about 2 minutes.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the student said, "It will be hell," and I believe him. So the question I'd like answered is, who's going to take the student's phone away if we have a ban? If the family is scared of him, and so should we. Every year I host crisis management trainings and physical crisis intervention, which on a side note, I think we need to make mandatory, by the way. In this training, we learn what to do when you are being physically attacked by a student. One of the first and last things I tell, and I stress to everybody who goes to my trainings, is under no circumstances do you ever take a student's phone away. Why? Because it's a quick way to get assaulted. Earlier today, I Googled student assaults teacher. I got almost 3 million hits. When it comes down to enforcing this policy, who will be the enforcers? Teachers are not equipped, nor should they be expected to confiscate student property.
Again, my trainings are going to tell staff to not touch student phones, but we will have a ban in place that is telling them to confiscate phones. It's going to contradict each other. I believe the core issue isn't the phone itself, but the social media ecosystem designed to capture and monetize attention. Phones are simply the delivery mechanism for these psychologically sophisticated platforms. Safety is a critical concern for parents and educators alike. Cell phones do provide an immediate lifeline in emergency situations. They provide the quick ability to communicate, which can be a lifesaver. For students with special needs, cell phones can be transformative. Translation apps assist ESL students. These devices can be powerful tools of inclusion and accessibility. However, cell phones are not just communication devices, they are sophisticated attention-stealing machines. A single notification will derail a student's concentration, breaking the thread of learning that teachers work so hard to achieve. The mental health implications are equally alarming. Cyberbullying, social media anxiety, and digital addiction are ravaging our students' psychological well-being. These devices create constant social pressure, reducing face-to-face interactions and genuine human connections that are crucial for adolescent development. The reality is that there are valid, compelling points on both sides of this debate. Ultimately, the most effective approach likely isn't a total ban or complete freedom, but a balanced approach that addresses both the potential benefits and risk of cell phones, and more importantly, social media. These adaptive policies should, 1, recognize the potential educational benefits of technology, 2, address legitimate concerns about distraction and mental health, and 3, teach responsible digital citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak? Yeah. Come on down. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, John Young. I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about this a little differently. You guys are dealing with a situation that has been growing and is daunting, and no doubt it's going to be a complex one to solve. Jonathan Haidt is the one who wrote The Anxious Generation, and I think his book has probably prompted a lot of people to start doing this kind of work. One of the things I think to keep in mind is that he talked about why many children do have cell phones today. He talks about in 1998 is when cell phones started getting into kids' hands, and then they changed in 2005 when those phones became smartphones. So he has a recommendation, for example, for how children could have a cell phone that's suitable for kids. One that is a flip phone and only has a couple of apps for simple notification between, say, a parent and a child. In his research and the research that he summarizes, he says that most parents will buy their child a phone when they're young because they are fearful of their safety. That safety that he's discussing had to do with the state of affairs in the late 90s when things like, say, the Night Stalker or Norwalk had grabbed everyone's attention. So you fast forward today, and the ironies that he's pointing out in his book is these cell phones have created a very anxious generation, and it's partly because we've given children a cell phone that is making their environment even more scary than reality really is. So he does have a suggestion for how to deal with it when you do take the phone away, and that is a curriculum that he has supported. It's called Let Grow. I'm happy to talk to any of the school board members about it. But the idea is to teach children how to do things for themselves and on their own, and at the same time encourages parents to know that while you can be conscious of your child's safety, you don't have to create a sense of constant fear, because that's oftentimes what the parents are reacting to when they're giving them these devices. So it's called Let Grow. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this? Welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you. Red Hat teacher here tonight. Thank you. Just a quick compare and contrast. So last year, the seventh graders were it was very difficult to get the cell phones out of their hands and have them keep it in their backpack, and they had a very difficult time handing it over to us. As a group of middle school teachers, we organized ourselves and we came up with the plan of what we were going to do. And I was very apprehensive implementing that this year for the fear of we're going to go to battle with these kids because there is that addiction to the phone. But because our admin team and counselors supported our plan and was very well communicated, parents and students understood this is how it's going to go. So this year's seventh graders, cell phone, put it in the box, fill it, slip, boom. They get it back at the end of the class. They do it again. It goes to the office. But anyway, consequences are working because we're working it to fidelity. So talk to us at Mayfair Middle School. We will let you know how our plan is working for us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? So now it'd be if you anybody would like to come to the podium who would be against the policy. I know it's kind of a weird delineation there, but no? All right. Ms. Stewart.
So I just wanted to clarify. I would love some feedback because I appreciate all of these comments, but it's not helping me answer the question that I have. Am I allowed to ask a question and elicit feedback from the audience?
Yeah, so it's a public hearing, which means it is agendized. You can engage in dialogue with the speakers or ask questions and have them respond as well.
Okay, so my question is this. Our policy states right now that we're not supposed to have cell phones in the class. So it's basically a bell-to-bell, no cell right now. But obviously, if that's the way we stick with it, then we need for our administrators to enforce that. At my school, we have a policy where they're in their backpacks and they're just put away. And they can only use them when right before they enter campus and when they leave campus. So they're not allowed to use them at lunch or breaks. That's what I'm struggling with. I think I'm hearing from everyone that people don't want them in the classrooms. You have Chromebooks they can use, I get that. For me as a board member, I need feedback on do we limit them at lunch and recess? Because again, I'm a teacher. I see the things that they do. They take pictures of me walking through the quad sometimes and post them. They jump off buildings so they can go viral. I teach middle school, so it's a little different than high school, and I get it. A 12-year-old is not the same as an 18-year-old. But what I would like to know is what is our community's opinion on keep them out of the classrooms or keep them off campus entirely until they leave campus. Can some of you please come and give me your thoughts because that's what I need for this policy for me to approve this. Somebody please.
So if any would like to come back to the podium.
Hi, Marion Foote again. I'll give a quick response. I do believe that kids do need to have that communication access to their parents throughout the school day, as long as it's not done during my class time. So I do understand that parents need that connection and kids need that connection with their parents. So as an individual teacher, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like the brief response?
Hi, my name is Tony Woods. My daughter has had a cell phone. I had to get her a cell phone basically when she got into 5th grade because she got into ensemble dance program. You guys transported my daughter from Stephen Foster Elementary to Washington Elementary. We got a pickup time that was an approximate pickup time. And sometimes the buses were late. And one time the bus was even late, like 45 minutes. I needed to know where my daughter is. There was no communication as to when they're coming back. We just went to the school, waited, and they got there when they got there. So I have to track my daughter. Just today, her cheer practice was canceled. So she was at school with her backpack. I dropped her off at 8:30. Dropped her off at 8:30, my other child, which the times of going to school is also inconvenient for everyone. But I make it work. And Ella immediately called me and said, I don't need to carry this second backpack, which is what she has to carry, 2 backpacks. She's a very petite girl. So I immediately left Stephen Foster, drove all the way back to Mayfair to get it. If she can't call me, then she's gonna have to be stuck with that all day. And I would assume my daughter was getting out at approximately 5:30 because there's still not a time for that. I need to be able to communicate with my daughter. I track her on that. I have a responsible student. I think you just need to communicate with the parents what the expectation is with these phones. but I need to communicate with her. And as far as, enrollment going down, I would 100% pull my daughter if she wasn't able to communicate with me. She's in cheer, she's in ASB, she leaves on buses. We're talking about weekend, we're talking about during school, we're talking about at night. It's all varying times, just like the schedules. She's out at 1:58 today, could have been 5:30. She's out at 1:16 next week, 3:35 tomorrow, 6:30 this day. I need to talk to her. And it's dark when we're going there. And she comes out all varying times. It's very much approximate, but I can look and track her. Okay, she's walking, this is where she's at. You guys let them go at lunchtime, and I didn't even know. I basically made a phone call, and then the parents got a message saying, oh yes, they're able to leave for lunch. We could have our kids just leaving for lunch, doing God knows what in the neighborhood, and we come back to pick them up because we're assuming the school is keeping them during lunch, but they're free to leave. So they're free to leave at a different time than we were thinking they're free to leave. So we need to be able to follow our kids. And I have a responsible child who's responsible with her phone. All of her teachers, when I go in their classrooms, just like she said, they have policies. They take their phone, they put it in a thing, discipline the kids. It starts in elementary school. And in hers, they were bad coming into Mayfair from the discipline issues that were coming from the elementary school, and it just proceeded to get worse. So we do not have some communication with our kids.
So just to clarify, what I'm talking about is they have their phones. I'm not saying they're not allowed to bring their phones, but they have their phones and they're in their backpack. So they can keep them on silent in their backpack all day long.
100%.
Locations. And just so you guys know, there's four times where they can actually use their phones. One is they can ask for permission. I do it all the time with my students. I'm in the locker room, so they can't have their phones in the locker room, but they will come in my office and say, can I call my mom? Yeah. Absolutely. So there are those built in. So knowing that, do you still think that they should be able to use their phones at recess and lunch?
Sometimes she does have to communicate with me at that time, but I get it if they're taking videos of stuff. But also, if my kid was in the bathroom and there was a fight, I do appreciate if there's a video, because it's going to happen and then they're just going to be silent. So I get it that they're posting this, but give them discipline action as far as the children that are posting and doing inappropriate things with that. But we do need to see who is in there and what is going on, because kids will stay silent and then we'll have somebody bullied and tortured, and then, things happen.
Thank you for your opinion. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
President Critchfield, can we please read the written one that was submitted via email to you?
Yes, let's do that one, then I'll come back to you, sir.
Thank you.
Wait, do I have it? Oh, no, Bonnie.
I have it. The email states, so many schools are using their position of authority to enforce a policy of bell-to-bell no cell. Phones powered off and in backpacks all day, snack and lunch too. It's in writing and on many schools' websites as a school-wide policy. In BUSD, it is left up to the individual teachers or explained verbally by administrators using phrases like, the majority of teachers agree, and never stated as an actual policy district-wide in writing. I feel this piece is so important. I'm finding many schools are holding the line there also, as a school in writing. When we used to have a discipline matrix, it stated clearly, no cell phones in view and or powered on during the school day or during participation in school activities. It said that right here at BUSD. And that was not the 1950s, it was just a few years ago. Why are we choosing to ignore rules that so many people have already spent so much effort to enact? We behave instead as if it's some giant monster of an undertaking to solve this, as if it's some new problem when in fact it was settled 10 years ago. Why do we insist on spending year after year acting like we need to start from scratch? What is the fascination with starting everything from square one? As adults, we must stop this destructive problem. We can no longer allow this experiment to go on. Larry Tanis.
Sorry, I was on my phone. Thank you for that. Sir, you're up next.
Thanks for letting me speak. Again, I guess it rounds out the comments. Yes, in the classroom, absolutely. As I already stated, bell to bell, no cell phones, and I really do try to practice that. But I am kind of in the, I'm kind of more utilitarian in that to think that you're going to have a moratorium on cell phones during lunch, snack, and everything outside a classroom and all the quads. We don't have the resources. We don't have the funds. The disruption that would cause among the community, meaning the students, they will, I believe that they would rebel. Silent rebellion, refuse to go to class, refuse to work, and it would affect them. So there has to be kind of a give and take. I try to find a compromise in things when it's reasonable and not immoral. And so allowing them to be on campus to use their phones, I mean, there has to be something where the parents have to do. We have to respect parent rights, but we also have to have parent expectations that they're going to be in charge of their child's mental health and not leave it to the state as a worker of the state. So, but I really think a balanced approach, and I just think it's really unrealistic to think that you're going to put the toothpaste back into the tube, for a lack of a better metaphor. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because we do it at my school, and it does work. So I know it works, but again, I'm teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th. Do you think the policies should be different with elementary versus high school?
It's a campus size. I think it should be more predicated on the size of the student body. You know, I think, you know, it's a powerful tool. I mean, the teacher should have some discretion. I know some math teachers, you know, it's very useful for them. I think Somerset, being a smaller, you know, environment, it may work to allow cell phones to just encourage engagement. I have found that technology is very engaging, but as a teacher, I have to teach them when it's appropriate to use it. I use AI and have for the last couple years, but I teach the students how to use it as a tool. And I try to do that with cell phones. But its term is on lunch. I mean, it gets into the whole issues of just basic human rights and parental rights and legal issues, but comes down to really money and resources and time and personnel. And if you just don't have the resource and time and personnel, and that money could be spent for interventions, you know, for a lot of our struggling students in this district with linguistics and mathematics, that money that you would spend to try and enforce a draconian cell phone policy on the outside of the classroom, that's money taken away for, like, my ELD students, and I'm a bit protective of them. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Hopefully that answered your
question. That
question.
helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's very helpful.
I hear what we're saying, Ms. Stewart. I don't know if I'm going to be helpful, but I'm going to try. I think if the world was ideal and we're in a Mary Poppins movie, cell phones need to be out. They need to be out of schools. There needs to be a total ban. But we are not there. When that lunch bell rings at Mayfair and I'm out there, thousands of phones. They're everywhere. So how we are going to control that, I can't even wrap my brain around how we would do that. Then we got to consider the watches, the earbuds, and now there's rings these days that do techie stuff. I think most experts will agree that social media is rotting our brains. It needs to go away. But how? So, yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I need all the perspectives.
Yeah.
I know how I feel. I need you guys all to give me. Thank you.
I really appreciate it too, because I've kind of gone 360 on this whole thing, because I'm techie, but when we were first talking about this policy, when I learned that we already had a policy that said was a complete, you know, you can't have your phone on in class at all. Then when I started going to the sites and hearing from the teachers of what the issues are, I think no matter what we decide as a board, and some of you have spoken on it this evening, it has to be enforced. And we have to give you the tools and the training to enforce it, but also the backing to where you don't feel like you're gonna confiscate a phone and all of a sudden it's given right back and now you're the bad guy. And you know, that's a, you know, you're gonna lose a lot of energy for nothing when you do that. So whatever we decide, it has to be enforced, and we have to have that discussion of how we get that enforcement, because we were looking at, some schools have gone full ban, some have gone to those Yonder bags and made that investment, and we're gonna have a lot of data this year as those schools start rolling some things out. But the staffing, the enforcement, the security, putting this extra duty on everybody is going to be, I've had to learn a lot at the sites of what that would really look like and what that would take. So I really appreciate all the comments tonight. But it's a massive hill for sure. Yeah, get up there.
It is possible that rather than we go all or nothing, we grandfather in and we phase out. So if you make a policy, I don't have a problem in TK, and they don't have a problem in kinder, and they don't have a problem in first or second, third, maybe fourth, fifth, and sixth we start having a problem. So once you decide what you do, maybe we start rolling it out. And I think it's underestimating the integrity of our children as citizens to assume that they are just going to make poor choices. I mean, some of it, I think, has to land in the expectations that we have on them. We're preparing them to be global citizens. I'm sorry, this is like telling my kids they can have sex in my bedroom because they're going to do it anyway. And they can have access to the liquor in the closet because they're going to do it anyway. And bring your friends over. And you can do the drugs here where I can monitor it. That's a little like what I hear us saying. Like, well, they're going to do it anyway. I think at some point, we have to be the adults and take back the job of being the teachers and the parents. And yeah, we're going to have differing opinions, but most of the people in this room didn't have phones in high school. So, I mean, and we're educated and competent, and we can use those now. We're preparing them to be global citizens and to work. They can't go to their job and sit on their phone all day. They will not stay employable. If we're talking about futures, we're building all of our future. I think maybe it's not all or nothing right now. Maybe that won't be successful, but maybe it's build out the policy and we phase it in. And unlucky them who don't get the better policy. I mean, it's really, we're doing a disservice to them by letting them just do whatever they want. So I think the most important thing, I think you said it, is we have to have a policy. One of the things we've lacked in this district for decades is clear policy, procedure, and protocol. It kind of comes down to you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to implement it. You're going to have to be consistent, and the language has to be the same on every single site. What we do, we all have to do. Essentially, we're a family. Somebody's going to have to be the parent, tell us how we're going to run things, and we're going to have to do it. And I think if you look at the data of what other people are doing, you can model some of that. But at some point, this is Bellflower Unified School District. Make a decision for us as a board, and that's what we move forward and do. And then the hill we die on is the one that we find out doesn't work. I mean, you implement something, and where it doesn't work, then you course correct it as you go.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. And I think that's it. The last part you said, I think that's exactly what we're doing. Like so AB 3216 is actually what prompted a lot of this conversation, and the board is very proactive in sending out the survey to the community. And also having this public hearing, the board wanted to hear from everybody directly. And then even, policies can change over time. But what I think the board had a very big interest in is knowing that we had a policy that was supposed to address the issue, but didn't seem to be working. So we wanted to make sure we put some sunshine on it and make sure that we're all on the same page so we can have, give the support that we need to on the policy. And yeah, anybody else like to speak before we move on and close the public hearing? Anybody but Dan? No, I'm just kidding. Get up there. All right. Oh, yeah.
Definitely Ms. Stewart, just to address your question and the survey that we did, 42% were in favor of a beginning of school to end of school ban.
This was teachers, correct?
Teachers, correct. No, just telling you the data.
I get it.
I completely agree with Ms. Wood that we need to know where our students are. I think you heard it a little bit, but teachers are, all the time I get, Mr. Fong, I forgot my PE clothes, can I text my mom? No problem, turn on that phone. It's not a big deal. If there are emergencies, if there are issues, I think the majority of teachers, I'm not gonna say all, most of them in this room would do that. They would allow the student to do it if it's an emergency or if there's a need. I get phone calls from the office all the time. Hey, grandma just called, so-and-so needs to come to the office. So there still is that communication piece, even with the phones put away. Realistically, if we're talking about complete ban, the Yonder bag is probably the way to go. It's an investment, but it allows for the quick enforcement, and if there's an emergency, they can always be torn apart. And I would be happy to reimburse my entire class if that is ever necessary, so that the district doesn't even have to pay for that bag. But those are accessible.
Put that on public record.
You can
Dan's
put it
gonna-
on public record, absolutely. It's absolutely worth it, I think, on both ends. And to Ms. Thompson's point, it's a great point that as soon as that bell rings, everyone's on their phones. I think we could say that might be a problem for some of us, you know, and we see the parent data that Dr. Smith presented at last meeting, and I think a lot of parents don't understand the prevalence of cell phone usage in our schools, and especially during free time when they should be interacting, learning how to communicate, taking a breath from the technology, which we put them on Chromebooks all the time. So they are getting plenty of screen time, as Ms. Thompson told us as well, even without them being on their phones during lunch and snack. But again, like we've heard a lot, we just need to sunshine, you know, whatever policy we come up with, and we need it to be across the board. Everyone is enforcing it, whatever we decide. But I certainly want to make sure that our students and our parents are taken care of at the same time, which no matter what. And again, those Yonder bags, it's a quick magnet, open it up, you can text it, or I've given students, you know, I said, students, hey, what's your parents' number? I'll text them even if they don't have a phone or a phone is broken. So there are ways, I think, where, you know, we need to explore all the options and come up with a compromise and think about all sides of the issue, because I appreciate everything that was said by a lot of people tonight. I'll only get up here like 2 or 3 more times. Thanks.
See you soon. Thank you, Dan. All right, any more comments before we close the public hearing portion?
Are you going to allow the board for discussion before you close it?
So after we close the public hearing, then the board will discuss. Going once, going twice. All right. Now to clear the public hearing closed, is there any discussion from the board?
Sorry. So about the cell phone policy, for me as a senior, I'm not 100% like opposed to the ban, but for me, I believe that you know, cell phones, they should be put away during instructional time, especially you know, if somebody can't do that or put away their cell phone, I feel like, and that is a problem, I feel like there should be further consequences and, you know, further extrication. But for example, me, I use my phone when I have to sign in or when I have to go into school or go out of school. It's called Minga. It's a school-wide app, and this helps people or students go around with the hall pass, and it shows how long you're in the restroom for. So teachers and staff, they utilize it a lot. But I feel like with the cell phone policy, some people or some students might work their way around it. For example, like Yonder pouches, I feel like some students might bring a fake phone and have their real phone in their pocket. You know, I'm just saying, like, a lot of students might just, you know, to a point, you know, work their way around it. So that's why I said not a total ban, but more consequences. And if they can't put it away and if they are having problems, then, like I said, further consequences and security. So, yeah.
Thank you, Student Board Member Ojose. Vice President Stewart.
I have a question. So she brings up Minga. Is Minga going to be able to be used if they don't have their cell phones? Is there?
If I
So
could-
that would just go away completely if
So-
they don't have their cell phone?
No, that's not right. So in the policy, it actually says with the exception of, where did it go? The exception for digital ID cards, if applicable, students are permitted to use the devices on school premises for accessing their digital ID cards. And I had a question about this too, which may require for identification.
No, but my question isn't that. I get that they need to use the mobile IDs to use Minga, but if we're saying no mobile phones, then you can't really say, well, you can't have phones, but you can use them for Minga. That doesn't really work. So I'm asking, if we said that they couldn't have their phones, would that program go away?
My understanding is that would be a problem. Your students do use those for things like hall passes. They also, for example, use that digital ID for lunch and for breakfast. That's how they're getting their meals. So it's a bit of a problem.
And it sounds like a bit of conflict of interest. We're talking about how phones are a problem, but then we have these things that they have to use their phones all the time when they're out of class going to the bathroom. I don't know, I'm so confused.
And if I can, and I'll go right back to you in just a second. I was wondering why, for that being in here, because...
Sorry, but he's saying that you can use your IDs, you don't have to use your phone. Is that correct?
That's correct. They can go old school.
They have them now? Is that what we're saying? Okay, so that's a different answer then. They can use that without their phones.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they would use their ID for a hall pass. I'm thinking that's something that would have to be worked out at the site.
Hey, Dan.
Thank you. Well, obviously I need the right information. Thank you, President Critchfield, but I need the accurate information for me to make decisions. So thank you.
So, so I was wondering, with the exception for that digital ID cards, if we're saying even in the current proposed policy that they would still have their phones on them, they just have to be put away bell to bell, they would still be able to use their digital ID cards to get into school, right? So is this for if they have to be put away? Because this policy says that they, for secondary, that they can have them out in lunch and break. So why do we have an exception for ID cards? Because they don't use, what I'm saying is they don't use the ID cards in class ever, right? Is there ever a reason to have them in class? So then why would there need to be an exception? That makes sense? So that's a question for you, Ryan.
The exception was written into the draft policy for the board's consideration, mainly because there is widespread usage of digital ID cards and Minga, not just for hall pass purposes, but for identification purposes, obviously, but also there's quite a few notifications that are going through Minga as well. So that exception was included in the draft policy specifically because our high schools, to my understanding, are using that technology pretty frequently. And so if there's an occasion where a student would need to use their phone to access their ID card to do something on campus, regardless whether it's in class or not, if we're using digital ID cards that are accessible via phone, it makes sense to have some kind, makes sense to me, to have some kind of exception for that. However, again, this is the board's policy. This is the board's policy draft. It can go any way the board would choose.
Okay, so, but they don't typically use like that in class. Like we're not allowing them cell phone use in class for that.
It's, I don't know if I would speak specifically to that because there could be an occasion where an ID card is needed to be in class, you're registering for something.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure there's probably a time that's come up where students have needed access to an ID card to
Okay.
do something in class, certainly out of class, but our teachers would know, our principals probably would know as well.
Cool. I appreciate that. Let me go down to student board member, Jose.
To use Minga in class, when the only time I've ever using it is when I need to make a hall pass. Like let's say I need to go to the nurse or the bathroom. I can make myself a pass and the teacher doesn't need to do it for me. But that's the only time. You can also, it shows your ID and your ID number. So let's say you're filling something out in class, you can just go on Minga and it has all your information. And then on top of that, it shows, notifications and, stuff that is going on around the school, not only through the week, but let's say per day. So maybe not during class as much, but definitely outside usage, maybe to check in somewhere.
Great, I appreciate that. Vice President Stewart.
Okay, so first off, on our next Friday memo, can we get some information on Minga? Because I'm a little confused right now. again, I'm not trying to say that kids are going to do bad things, but I can't imagine that they can just make their own hall passes and just leave class whenever they want. So maybe I'm not totally understanding the system. So can you just kind of give us a little bit of information on how that works?
We can. We'll provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Board Member Armstrong.
Well, as you guys know, I have a senior also, and you know, I'm like these parents here. My child needs her phone for unexpected things that could happen. I do agree with Dr. Robinson. We just need to we need to roll it out, and we need to educate our children, because we're not getting away from technology. We're moving forward. So we have to teach them acceptable use of cell phones. And I'm telling you, these smartphones are, it's everything is on there. The whole world is open. So I don't have any problems. I'm also a teacher, but I don't have any problems with my students. My students don't have cell phones, but they sure know how to work them. And they better not find they better not figure out your passcode if you have one. But I think we need to make sure that we teach our children, and we start young and teach them the acceptable use. You know how we have the acceptable use of technology? I'm sorry, we have AI coming up. I mean, well, AI is here. So we have to teach and teach our children what integrity is and virtue is. Because we have students who use the phones the way they're supposed to be used. So as long as we have in the policy that balance. Now, I do know a teacher that has, she has a little storage box to where the phones go right in there, because she's teaching, she has a lesson, she has no time for a cell phone. So if the teacher is teaching and has that lesson, and the phone is not required, it should not be a problem. I said it should not be a problem. However, if you have those children, some children, depends on what's going on in their mental health. You guys have got to remember, we're in a mental health crisis also. And it's not just for the children. We need to possibly figure out a way to store those phones in the classroom, allow the children to have their phones when they're not in instructional time. So, I don't know, we have to get our parents on board. I heard one person say, you know, that they're afraid of their own child. So all these things need to be considered. But we have to get the parents and the guardians on board, and we have to find that balanced approach.
Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. Vice President Stewart.
Sorry, I have one more question on Minga. Can it be used on their Chromebooks?
I'm hearing yes in the audience.
Okay, that makes a difference for me. And then another just comment. It's okay. I just want him to hear. Another comment on page 2 of the policy, down at the very bottom. It says collaborative policy development. It says the principal or a designee at each school site will work collaboratively with staff to develop clear policies. I disagree with that. I agree with a lot of things that we heard from our public, where we should have one policy for the district, and it should be for all principals and all sites. I don't think we should let sites do this individually, so that is something that I would change in this policy. And then the next one at top, promote digital citizenship. I would love to know, this policy says that we should do that, and we should do that, and I would love to know what we are doing each year to promote the digital citizenship amongst all of our students, because I think that's necessary.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. AB 3216, it says we have to create a policy that limits cell phone uses by June 2026, right? So that's like what they're saying. This is, we took initiative and we're talking about it now, but I think policies will change over time. I think, honestly, I was kind of, Dan and I talked, but I don't think that they're doing much good for our kids, period. And I think in a perfect world, some of us would agree that they shouldn't have them at all. But it's not a perfect world, and people have legitimate concerns. I even myself, I track, the little AirTag or like the Apple Watches. Like for my daughters, it's a must. I'd feel weird if they didn't have them on. And that's one thing that, and thank you for putting that in the survey again, Ryan. Like, we asked about Apple Watches as well because I think, I forgot who said it, but the technology isn't just about phones, and it won't be in 2-3 years. I can't wait to buy the new Apple glasses. I mean, like, then we have to have a separate policy. Like, the technology is it's gonna keep moving the goalposts. So I think we need to address the root problems. And for me, with all of our policies, we've talked a lot about policies this year, is whatever our policy is, we have to stand behind it. We should know what's in our policy, and we need to support people that are enforcing the policy. And we can't, if we're not going to enforce a policy, might as well not even have one. And if you have a policy and you know you're not going to do it, well, it degrades the value of all your other policies. So whatever we decide on, it has to be something that we can stand behind and we can do. And whether that's financially or staffing. So those are my thoughts on it. I know there's going to be still some more discussion on this going further. Vice President Stewart?
I am wondering if teachers are watching a video at the beginning of the school year and filling out Google Docs, and if that's monitored by the district. Probably not, since you guys.
Can you clarify your question?
My question is, I was told that teachers actually do watch a video on digital citizenship and they fill out a Google form. Does the district monitor that form to make sure all teachers are doing that? And if so, what grades are they being done?
All of them, and yes, it is being monitored, and there's a deadline for it.
Okay, so I would love if you guys, if you know that and we're talking about this, please chime in and let us know these things so that they're not answering our questions, because we all should know this, right? I mean, we should know this, and if you guys know it, please tell us, because we need your advice when we're talking about creating policy.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Before we close the public hearing, again, thank you everyone who spoke about this. I don't think not many people think they have like the right answer. This is a very difficult issue that we all kind of handle in our own houses, and then to do it for a school district is very difficult. I'm not going to pretend like I have all the right answers, but I'm glad that we're spending the time discussing it, and I thank you for being a part of that. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
You have that motion?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. You told me that's how we do it.
No,
Don't
you
mess
already
me up.
closed the public hearing, you just
Oh.
move on from the item.
Oh, okay, so I don't know.
You don't have to do anything, just move on to the next item.
I'm just going above and beyond, Andrew. All right, we will now move on to discussion items. Mrs. Acevedo.
Yes, sir. We have 2 discussion items this evening. Let's begin with item 11.1, Board Policy 5131.8, Mobile Communication Devices. I'll turn it back over to you. You just discussed it a
Now I'm
lot.
ju-
Not
okay,
quite
would
sure if you
anybody
wanna
like to
discuss
talk
again.
about cell phones now? No? All right. Do I have any questions or comments from the board regarding policy 5131.8?
It was just a discussion, so we're bringing
Yeah.
it back for an actual reading, correct?
You are. This is your first reading. This is your first reading of that draft. It'll come back for a second.
Okay, so then if that is the first reading, then I suggest that on that page that I talked about, we make it a across the district uniformed policy that it's not up to the principal or the sites to figure it out. I think it should be a district policy that all the sites follow. What do you guys think?
I agree with that.
President Critchfield?
Do you guys sitting with me and we go through this? You know, like a little subcommittee?
President Critchfield, one thing we can do is revise this draft, bring it back to you again based on the feedback that you received this evening. We can go back and listen to the recording, and maybe there's some updates to this draft you're looking at that needs to be made.
Who was on the subcommittee for the cell phone policy?
We didn't have a subgroup for that. You didn't have an ad hoc for that. We did have meetings with the secondary principals to discuss it, but it wasn't a formal committee.
Okay.
want us to tackle it, or you want them to do it?
We've had those, meetings. I overheard, what were you at, you were
I
asking?
said, do you want them to make the corrections and we go back, or do you want me and Amy to work on it?
I would be open to, because there's a lot of feedback tonight. I want to make sure that, things are correct in it. I can give you my feedback as well, but I think a subcommittee and meeting with a couple of the board members to just make sure next time it comes up, it has all those things accounted for would be good. Would anybody on the board like to be a part of that subcommittee before this comes back to the board?
And obviously Renita wants to be on it, but again, not that I'm on like a million committees, but there's two people that might want to be on it. I'm wondering if we wait and talk with our other board members, unless you'd like to be on it.
Can we table it?
Table it? Or
Can
make the
you
corrections
reach
somebody
out
would?
to the board members and you can form that committee and just include a couple board members to be a part of that? Maybe put out, ask who would like to be a part of it. I know Ms. Armstrong would like to be a part of that. Maybe reach out to the two others.
Yes, and just to clarify, that would be to work on a draft to bring back to the board, another draft, an
Yeah.
updated.
Yeah, maybe even going through some of the feedback we got tonight and coming up with that, with all of our input. That'd be great.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification, whatever comes back would come back as a first reading that the board would then vote on, and then would come back the subsequent meeting as second reading, board vote, and then it become policy.
So this isn't a first reading?
No, this is just a discussion.
Okay, so maybe we can make committees at the next meeting. Is fine. Next time this comes up. I thought this was a first reading, so that's fine. But I think, given some of the feedback tonight, would be helpful. Ms. Armstrong, do you want to say something?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else from the board? No. All right. Moving on to item 11.2, Board Policy 4210.3, Relationship to the Personnel Commission. I'll turn it back over to Board President Critchfield to open up the discussion. I just read your line, didn't I? All right. Do we have any questions or comments on this? No questions?
I have a few comments. If you turn to the second page, first I want to say, I talked with Mrs. Acevedo about this, and I want to say that I appreciate our Personnel Commission. I appreciate everything they do. I think they're amazing. But looking at item number 2 at the very bottom, where we're talking about their compensation, $250 per month, I guess my question is, how long are their meetings, and how often are their meetings? Because although I do appreciate that, $250 a month is actually more than us as board members make. And I just feel like, again, I don't want to be petty or anything, but we do a lot of work. We have 6-hour meetings, and for them to make more than us, I feel like maybe it should at least be equal, but I don't believe that they should make more than us when they only have 1 or 2 meetings a month and they're an hour-long meeting. And I know that might not sound good, but that's the way I feel, so I'm going to be honest because that's who I am.
So I think that's a maximum of $250, but it's $50 per meeting. So they'd have to have 5 meetings. I mean, I guess they could schedule 5 meetings, but that's just a max, correct?
That is correct. They typically have 1 meeting per month. Every once in a while, they may have 2. Dr. Smith may have more information about that for you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Their regular meetings are once a month, and then on occasion, they may need to call a special meeting. So for example, the last couple months, I believe they've had 2 as they've gone through their process to identify an executive director.
Okay.
But President Critchfield, your reading is correct. It's $50 per meeting, not to exceed. So for example, if they had 10 meetings in a month for some reason, the most that they would be paid is $250. I'd also like to point out that those figures represent maximum figures that are specified in education code. It's actually up to the board to decide what amount, if any, it would choose to compensate Personnel Commission members for their service. At the moment, existing board policy, as you can see, defines that as $15 per month. An existing board policy technically doesn't extend access to the same benefits, health and welfare benefits program, or health benefits that other classified employees get.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And just thank you for finding these things. I think one of the things on this board we've done, we put a lot of work into finding past practices that maybe weren't reflected in policy and correcting those things. And I think this is one of those things where our past practice in dealing with the Personnel Commission hasn't been updated in their policies nor reflected in ours. So this is kind of part of the cleanup. So I appreciate bringing the, Vice President Stewart.
I think I would be okay with the $50 a meeting, but if you're saying they only have one meeting a month, then I would like to cap it maybe at like $200 and kind of just force the issue of they're not going to have 10 meetings a month.
I mean, we definitely don't want to incentivize more meetings. I mean, they're fun and everyone loves them, but we don't want to like say, hey, you could do 5. I mean, so could we like cap at 150? Because Ed Code is up to 250, right?
That's correct. What you see reflected is the Ed Code maximum. So again, it's the board's prerogative if it chooses to compensate at all, so long as it doesn't go beyond what's defined in Ed Code.
Right.
Is there an Ed Code maximum for board members, or is it just the lay code that they give us on what we're allowed to make?
So currently there's some discussion at the state level to adjust the stipends or compensation to school board members because that has not been looked at.
Right.
And I know for city council members, it was just revised by the state assembly and senate. So yeah, that would be something to consider, maybe discussing with state representatives and seeing if they would be willing to take up a bill to modify the compensation for school board members, which at this time it is far below other elected officials.
Sorry, all of ours are red, so nobody can talk but Brad.
It's just a coincidence. It's just, no, I didn't do it. Like, get my back up over here.
They're all red, we can't talk.
All right, that'll conclude tonight's. I know, I'm kidding. Can we, what is it? Pardon the technical difficulties, folks. Your regular program will resume shortly. Hey, by the way, tonight's the first meeting that we're doing translation in Spanish, live translation. Like tonight's the first one. So give it up to our tech team. Killing it. We'll, we don't want to rush you. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we're going to get these mics fixed and the show will continue. Thank you. All right, we'll now re-adjourn an open session at 8:38 p.m. So we were on discussion of the personnel policy. Were there any other comments from the board?
I just had a question. So even if they do work 1 or 2 hours per month, number 4 says you guys, so it's added that they're going to be entitled to the same health insurance plans. So do our people in the Personnel Commission, do they have other regular jobs? Do they have regular jobs to where they, or do they need, because they're only working 1 or 2 hours a month?
I don't know specifically which members of the commission have that or not. I don't. The intention of the policy is to make it available to them should they need it. That's something that is common for boards to extend to personnel commissions, but I can't speak to the specific commissioners in this particular case. I do think it's important to note that our commissioners have been eligible, and I have to verify if they've been receiving them, but they've been eligible to receive benefits for some time now. It just hasn't been memorialized in board policy as it should.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, because it looks like it's being added. But if it's always been there, then that's great. That's great.
And again, it's up to the discretion of the board ultimately. That's why we wanted to make sure one way or the other it's solidified in policy whether the board chooses to continue to extend that as a benefit or not.
Right, so I believe how it has been, they have been getting benefits for as long as, it was just never in our policy, and that's what we're trying to do is, okay, if that's what we're doing, then we're gonna put it in our policy, so it's, like you said, memorialized.
That's absolutely correct, and if the board wants to continue to provide that, again, it's up to the board.
Right. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? All right, so this is a discussion item, so I think I heard one direction for staff was to, I would say cap, like take that 250 and cap it at, say, like what, 150 or 200? What does the board think? Are they ever going to do more than 3 meetings a month? I would say 200. 200's fine.
Yeah, 200's fine.
Yeah, 5 just seems a little excessive. Yeah. Yeah, 200? 5 meetings, sorry. Was there any other direction from the board regarding this policy before it comes back for a reading? No? All right. Okay, we will now move on to major action. Let's begin with item 12.1, review and acceptance of the 23-24 audit report. We have a report presentation.
You do. You have Mr. Jeff Nigro, partner of Nigro & Nigro, who's going to be sharing with the board our audit report.
Good evening. Thank you. I think you've all heard my audit report presentations in the past, so I won't bore you with all of the background and stuff that I usually do. I think this is your probably your third time hearing me talk about this. I think it's our third year doing the district's audit. But just to briefly go over it, it's for the 23-24 fiscal year. I think normally we come out in January, so we're a little ahead of schedule this year. That's a good sign, always a good sign. I was just telling them that we're still in the process of wrapping up several school district audits because the deadline's on Monday. And one audit finding, that's a pretty rare thing in our office. I was just telling them I have another client that's got 14 audit findings that we're still trying to wrap up. So it's kind of a comparative note there. Anyway, the audit report has a unmodified clean opinion on the financial statements. So that means that the financial statements here, referring back to the financials that you adopted back in September, the unaudited actuals, we've audited them and we give a clean opinion, which means the financial statements are prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now, the report in front of you has a lot of information. It really hasn't changed format year over year, so there's not much new in terms of the format, but just briefly to remind you, after our opinion, there's a section called Management's Discussion and Analysis. And for those of you who aren't numbers people, if you don't want to read the whole audit report, you just want to kind of get an overview of it, that's the section you can look through, and it gives you a lot of comparative data, how the district did year over year in various areas and what the different financial statements mean. Now, if you're a real numbers nerd and you really want to get into the numbers, they start on page 11, the actual financial statements, and then those are followed by notes, which really get into the gory details, defining different aspects of governmental accounting. And like I said, if you really want to know about pension plans and discount rates, things like that, it's all in there. But most people, you know, are going to just breeze right past that stuff, but it's all in there in all of its number nerd glory. There's a section after that. There's a few sections after that. There's the required supplementary information section in the audit, which is stuff that the GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, requires to be presented, which has a lot more information about PERS and STIRS and your retiree benefits plans. Then there's some other information that the State Controller's Office requires. That's your other supplementary information. So stuff about the district's ADA and your instructional time, requirements, your federal programs, things like that. Then you get to the next to last section, the other independent auditors reports. And this is where we put in our letters that say we followed all the standards that we were supposed to follow when we did your audit. Not only do we look at your financial statements, we look at your internal controls, we look at compliance with federal programs, and we look at compliance with state programs. And the state programs that we have to audit are all listed out on pages 79 and 80. You'll see it's quite the menu. It gets longer and more tedious every year as they add more and more programs with more and more gotcha type requirements in them. That's why I was saying in the beginning that it's quite the achievement to only have one audit finding, because the majority of our district clients this year has had findings, at least in TK or the ELOP program offerings. So it's pretty good that the district managed to not get any findings in those areas. That takes us to the last section of the report, which is the findings, which is...
Real quick, could you define finding for me?
Sure. Findings are the results, can be the result of a few things. Usually it's either internal control deficiency or it's a non-compliance with a state or federal program requirement.
Okay.
So the findings are in the back, and that's usually, like I say, where most people are gonna go first because they wanna see what did we catch you on. Page 83 and 84, you'll see that we had no findings in relation to the financial statements or internal controls. There were no findings in the federal programs we tested, and there was one finding in all the state compliance areas. And then there were no findings in the previous audit report. And then finally, in the back, there's a letter where we discuss some of the issues noted during our testing of ASB funds at the school sites, but those were not deemed significant enough to be findings per se, because they weren't what we would call significant problems. But the state requires us to put any communications to management in the audit report as well. So that's back there.
Could you explain the one finding?
Can I explain it? Yes, there's a requirement that's been in place for a few years now, and it's called Form CEA. It's actually part of the unaudited actuals. It stands for the classroom. I forget exactly what the acronym stands for, but essentially it's calculating the percentage of total expenditures in the district that go towards classroom teacher salaries. And there was an error in the calculation that caused the district to miss the requirement. And so we're required, because we have to audit that, we're required to put it in the audit report. And I believe that there's a waiver for that from LACO available, so our recommendation was for the district to seek a waiver for that requirement for the year.
So what happens when you have a finding like that in an audit report?
Well, in this case, if they apply for the waiver and they get the waiver, nothing happens. The district will work to correct that in the current year, because it's an annual audit requirement, so we'll audit it every year. If it becomes a continual finding, then they won't grant a waiver continually. They'll do it one time, and then the district would eventually have to correct that, so.
And what is the requirement, what is the goal of that requirement? Like, why do they have that?
Why? Well, that's an interesting question. I believe that came out years ago as a result of communication with CTA and the state legislature. And it was an effort by them to require that districts spend a certain percentage of their annual general fund budget on classroom teacher salaries.
Okay.
And so they made a requirement that the district report that in their financial statements every year.
And there was no finding with our classified employees?
There's no similar requirement for classified employees.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm. Vice President Stewart?
I have two questions. My first question is, on what page can I find that finding that we did not meet so that I could read up on that? 85? And then my...
Yeah, it's on 85. It's also in the district's unaudited actuals that you adopt in September. It's listed in Form CEA.
Okay, and then my second question was on page 87. It says 5 out of 10 deposits sampled for our ASB lacked sufficient supporting documentation. What documentation would we have needed?
That's not a simple answer, but it depends on the type of item. For ASBs, they do all sorts of different fundraising activities and events. So we're typically looking for some sort of documentation that shows where the money came from. If it was a fundraiser, is there a record of sales? If it was for an athletic event, was there some tracking of tickets done? And so there's, we're looking for example, tally sheets, individual pre-numbered receipts, basically some sort of point of sale documentation that shows where the money came from and that it's all accounted for.
And did you only do Bellflower High School, or did you do Mayfair as well? And was that only a problem at one of the schools?
No, we noted that issue at both Mayfair and Bellflower.
So as far as staff, can we find out like what's happening or how we can improve in that area?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I ask, with the finding on page 85, so did we apply for the waiver?
So we have not applied for the waiver. We need the finding in the audit report to apply for the waiver. We've gathered all the documentation. Many school districts, I think Mr. Nigro can attest to, have trouble with this calculation. It's an old calculation. And we have all the documents we need to apply for the waiver, but needed the audit report to finalize.
Okay, thank you.
And when we completed the unaudited actuals, we had made some amendments that we passed. However, the auditors saw that we needed to make different amendments or do it in a different manner. So as we look to close the fiscal year for next year, we'll look at those same kind of amendments and ensure that we pass along the appropriate lines.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I know I kind of jumped to questions pretty quick. Was there anything else for the presentation?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
That's it. That's the end of the report.
All right. Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I
All right.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a good night.
You too. All right, so this will require a motion to accept the audit report. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, roll call, please.
Student Member Ojose?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. All right, the motion passes. Next major action item is 12.2, first interim financial statements. We have a presentation, Ms. Acevedo.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Business Officer, Ms. Renee Arcus.
We are looking to get the presentation up on the screen. Give us one moment. Oh, the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. Present on. Okay. We are almost back in working order. Thank you for your patience. All right. Good evening, President Critchfield, Vice President Stewart, board members, fellow cabinet members, and members of staff and community here and at home tonight. I have the pleasure of presenting to you tonight our first interim report, which is our first glimpse into our district financials for the year. Let me first begin by walking us through the budget reporting cycle. In June of 2024, we provided a 24-25 budget presentation as a starting point for our budget cycle. This is our first and best understanding of what we are expecting for the fiscal year. The 45-day revise provides the district with an opportunity to adjust any major changes made to the state budget parameters after our June adoption. This year, we did not have anything that met this requirement. In September, we brought to the board the final financials called the unaudited actuals for fiscal year 23-24. Just before this presentation, our audit firm provided the details of the finalization of those records. Tonight, we can say we have officially closed the books on fiscal year 23-24, at least fiscally. Tonight, I'm presenting the first interim report as represented by the green arrow on the cycle. We will have 2 more opportunities to refine our finances with additional information throughout the year. This is our first and best projection for 24-25. Very soon, we will start the planning process for next year's budget, 25-26. You can see from the slide that we will start to garner information from the governor's January budget and utilize it to start the development of our next fiscal year's budget, while continuing to monitor our current year projections to provide the most up-to-date numbers. What this tells us is that fiscal year monitoring and development is a year-round activity that keeps our fiscal staff on our toes all year long. So here we are at our first stop, the first interim. This is the actuals reported through October 31st of 2024, and the estimated expenditures reported through the fiscal year end, June 30th, 2025. The first interim also provides an additional 2 years look at the district financials for fiscal years 25-26 and 26-27. I'm bringing this to the board tonight for approval. The financials show that our district can meet its financial obligations for the current and the next 2 years. In order to project revenue and expenditures for so many years, our fiscal staff utilized data points to calculate in certain areas. On this slide, there are 3 different data points for revenue: cost of living, or COLA, which is provided by the state, funded average daily attendance, or ADA, and enrollment. The district's largest source of revenue, our local control funding formula, or LCFF revenue, is based on these items and more. The unfortunate loss of COLA and students attending school have impacted Bellflower greatly, as I will show you in the next few slides. While we are combating the costs in areas of expenditures, we are also experiencing decreased revenues. On this slide, I point out that costs associated with our retirement benefits for employees as an increased cost, but keep in mind we have increased costs associated with health and welfare for our employees, increased costs for supplies, contracts, increased costs associated with utilities, all things that many of us are feeling in our own homes right now. So let's take a look. The general fund is our largest operating fund and houses the majority of the revenue and expenditures for Bellflower Unified. It is split into 2 areas, unrestricted and restricted funds. I will concentrate on our unrestricted general fund revenue as it is the largest funding that is the least restrictive. Here you see an improvement in our projected revenues from $149 million to $151.4 million. The major change is in our local control funding formula sources, which have improved as the adjustment to our 3-year average attendance was calculated and now realized. The second interim could bring another change as well as we await the approval of our final unduplicated pupil count by the state. We also realize a change in our projected expenditures for the general fund unrestricted dollars. This can be seen here on this slide. At budget adoption, we had expenditures approved in the amount of $142.6 million. And we are now projecting expenditures at $134.4 million, a decrease of about $8.2 million. This is a reflection of collaboration between the fiscal departments and our program departments. We were able to review planned expenditures to determine the accuracy of the expenditure, review restricted resources that are state, federal, and locally provided to determine if there were better options for utilizing these dollars. The resulting savings to the unrestricted general funds allows us some time to review our expenditures now and for the future so we can make informed decisions regarding the budget process. As per the requirements that I spoke of regarding Ed Code, we will be submitting a multi-year projection for the current and the next 2 years. Here's a glimpse of the unrestricted general fund. One of the market differences in the revenue decline between this year and last year, so I've included last year's ending and the 3 years that are included in the first interim, is an estimated loss of $8.3 million due to a decreased COLA and our loss of enrolled students and decreased attendance. So you can see that on the slide under the unaudited actuals, which is the first column, last year we were anticipating we did receive $159.7 million This year, with the change in COLA and the decreased attendance of students, and enrollment, we are expecting about $151.4 million in unrestricted revenue. Over the next 2 years, show a slight increase due to some more favorable cost of living increases from the state. However, there's also already been some rumblings in the legislature that the COLAs that have been provided to the districts may be lower as state revenue and expenditure projections become more clear. So back to the COLA slide, and the percentages were used. We're waiting for the governor's budget to hear some more about those things. Our multi-year expenditures are also expected to increase year over year with some inclusion of district projects, including upgrades to our fire and alarm systems and some Mayfair field improvements. Here's a broader picture of our entire general fund, including our restricted resources. This includes dollars devoted in areas such as special education, title programs, our after-school programs, CTE programs, and many others. One of the largest changes that you can see here is the ending of our federal ESSER resources. So if you look on the federal revenues line, you can see last year we had 21.6 million. This year we're expecting about 10.5. That's all federal resources, but the largest decrease between the 2 years has to do with the finalization of our COVID federal dollars. As we move towards the future with those extra federal and state dollars, your restricted revenues start to look more like a pre-pandemic level, and will be limited to the programs as assigned by federal, state, and local restrictions. Here's a picture of our components of ending fund balance as per our board-approved budget. The first column represents where we were in our board-approved budget in June of 2024, and now at the time of our first interim. While we have landed quite close to the same place, we have made some adjustments to committed balance to preserve funding in anticipation of deferred facilities needs and our future spending deficits. Preparing for our future is our top priority. All of this information brings me to a multi-year outlook of our general fund balances, starting with the final reported balances in 22-23, 23-24, and then our projected balances for 24-25 through 26-27. This multi-year outlook shows an overall general fund improvement of about $25 million from our adopted budget in June. At the same time, it continues to show that decreased state revenues and increased expenditures for ongoing costs such as retirement, health and welfare costs, supplies, utilities, and contracts show a steady march downward of district resources that will continue to weigh on district finances. What we have available to us is some time to navigate these waters, continue to review finances, and look for area of improvements. Which brings me to our next steps. In January 2025, the governor will release its 25-26 proposed budget, and we'll also have a mid-year review, local control and accountability plan review. In March of 25, we will come back to the board for our second interim reporting. This is our second option to provide some more detailed results. Right now, as first interim closes, we were looking at actuals through October, but the second interim gives us a much better option to look at actuals through January and project those resources. In May of 2025, the governors will release their May budget revise. And in June, we will have the same public hearing for local control and accountability plan and budget, and the board will have approval of those two items as well. And then I'll bring us back to September for the board approval of the unaudited actuals, and our unaudited actuals will be turned into our Los Angeles County Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Now open up for questions from the board. Vice President Stewart.
My first question is, can we get these in all of our presentations, the pages numbered?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to just tell you, the page I'm talking about is the unrestricted expenditure summary. And I just had a question on the other outgo transfers of indirect costs. What are examples of indirect costs? What is that?
So indirect cost is in Ed Code, and it's allowed that we charge to our restricted programs. So to run a Title I program, they may give us, and I'm going to use just made up numbers for this part. They may give us $1 million to run a program in our district. We, at every unaudited actuals, we figure out what our cost for administrative of that program costs, and it comes out in a percentage rate. So right now we're in the 6 or 7% rate. So our program that's on the restricted side can be charged 7% to cover the unrestricted costs, such as the payroll department cutting the checks or the AP department writing checks to vendors to manage the program, managing the benefits for all of the people in the program. So transfers of indirect costs get charged to the restricted side, and we get a credit because all of the charges that we do to make those programs happen to be on the unrestricted side.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Board Member Armstrong?
Yeah, I have a question on that same page. At the end for the total expenditures, I'm sorry. I'm wondering, has anything been cut to make because we approved so much, but then the projected totals come out less?
So that was where I talked about, in concert with talking with staff and program staff about things that we could use. Either we utilized restricted resources, or we found that that was not something that we were going to do this year or that we were able to do without. So that's the change, and that's the actual opportunity for all of the interims is, as a budget, we're gonna prepare our most options or the most dollars that we have available, but the projections are what we're actually planning on spending. So there's been some modifications made to how we're gonna spend money if we're gonna utilize other resources to do that.
Okay, and then I have another one. If you just go back one page, I think it's back one page. And you have the projected totals to the actual date. Are we like, I'm referring to the yellow, the 151, do you project that we're gonna be overspending?
Those are revenue sources, so that's revenue. That's
Right,
money that we're gonna
be
take
getting.
in. So
So
we,
we're gonna be getting more.
we anticipate at this time that we're gonna get more revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. So I have a question for Renee. So on the audit report we just got, they mentioned that finding. Where would I find that number on here? I see certificated salaries on here, but would it be under the, so in that audit finding, it said that we're at 95 million. So where does that show up here? Are we projected to do this, have the same finding next year, or how does that affect projections?
Okay, so that particular, the CEA takes into account all expenditures that are labeled as such in the financials, so it can be found all throughout. Money that we're spending on teacher salaries compared to the entire district. And so there's not a number in this presentation, and remember that was on last year's numbers too. So there's not a number in this presentation. Do we anticipate having the same problem? No, I think we're gonna be okay. What we had last year was a lot of expenditures for non-instructional items that built up a balance. So if you're into math,
So
our
the
denominator
ratio.
got bigger.
Right.
Once we don't have those dollars in our systems, we anticipate not having a problem with the CEA. We made adjustments that we thought were appropriate at the time. The auditor wanted us, said those weren't the proper adjustments, so we're gonna look at that, and before we close the books, ensure that we're in alignment with what the CEA requests.
So that's interesting. So say if there's like construction project or there's something like that, does that affect the ratio? So where it actually like messes with that percentage, so it's.
That's a really good example. The calculation takes out known things that are really clear, like construction, right? It takes it out of the equation, and it also has to be in the general fund, which under most districts, you won't find a ton of construction in the general fund. Other things it didn't take into account is the influx of the ESSER funds, in which we use them for technology and other items that kind of raised that bottom bar and had to have us looking for areas that we could adjust that. When I say we're not alone, I know a lot of districts have been experiencing it, and have been requesting waivers. This will be our first waiver. We have the utmost confidence that we've collected the data to show that we believe that we'll get that waiver from LACO, and we definitely will report back if there's any concerns about that. But looking at this year's numbers, we're going to keep close tabs on that, and before we close the books, ensure that we can meet that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Vice President Stewart?
My next question is from the actual report itself.
Okay.
And it's page 1.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you get there. Tell me when you get there.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm there.
Okay, so I was actually talking with Board Member Garza last night about these, and we were looking at the expenditures. So looking at number 4, books and supplies, I know we budgeted about $7 million, and we've only spent $746,000. So it's looking like we are going to over budget about $3.3 million in books and supplies, correct?
The way that reads is we've changed our projection down by 3.2 million. So the way it reads across the board is we budgeted 7 million. We're planning on spending 3.8, and the column E is the difference and the reduction that we've made to our financials to reflect that we don't believe that we will be spending the 7 million. That particular column doesn't have to do with the actuals. The actual is more of a guideline to see how we're doing so far.
So the difference is just on what we projected at first.
The difference is what we're projecting now at first interim from our budget adoption.
And that difference is about $3.3 million.
That's correct.
Okay, so then the next line, we were looking at 6, capital outlay. It looks like we are negative 70%, so we under budgeted, and that one is we are gonna spend $3 million more, correct?
Yes, at the time of budget, the entire budget for the fire and alarm systems project was not included.
Okay.
And so this is an opportunity. This is one of those great examples of an opportunity to relook at our budget. Again, I wasn't here during budget development.
Right.
To look at our budget and say, hey, we are going to utilize those funds. We have a contract that was board approved to do that project, and now we should adjust our first interim to reflect those dollars. In the same way, hey, we might not be doing the same things in supplies, and so we should adjust ours in the same manner.
But the majority of that is for the fire and alarm systems that we're doing, correct?
Yes, the majority of that number, that's a capital expenditure line, and so yes, the majority of that is for the fire and alarm project for the 4 schools that we've started.
And then the last question I had was on line 8. That is what you described in this when you talk about the indirect costs. That's just that on this page, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I know Board Member Garza had that. And Board Member Garza and I would like to meet with you and go over this so we can understand better, and I'll get with you on that.
I would love to support you in
Thank
that.
you.
The more support I have in understanding these very complex documents, the better it will be for all of us.
Thank
so thank you
you.
for offering.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. How confident are you, Renee, in these projections, the multi-year?
So here's what I can tell you is our projections, as with the first, is based on assumptions and impacts that we monitor. What I can tell you is that this is the best information that I have at this time. It's also only, at the time we started developing this, 3 months into the school, or 3 months into the year, or 4 months in the year, October 31st, and 2 months into the school year. So you can imagine when we're looking at documents such as this, and we're looking at 2 months out of the 10 months of school expenditures, extrapolating that data and looking at things can get quite intense. So this is the best information that I have at this time. My goal is to come back to you at each board meeting with the best information that I have. And if that means changing the numbers and explaining to you the changes, that's what I'm here to do. So second interim will come with the March deadline. It's actuals through January. We're now 7 months into the calendar year, and about, what would that be, 5 months into the school year. That's a much better picture for what we're looking at, how we're spending, what kind of employees we have on our records, and how much we've been doing of extra service, or how much we've been spending in regards to POs. All of those things will factor into what I will bring you at each of those determinations. So this is the best information that I have at this time to give to you. And any changes that I'll make, I'll bring at that time.
But they won't be like 40 million off or anything, right?
I do not plan to have anything of that nature.
And I appreciate that you're here, and I have all the confidence in the world in you, and I appreciate the perspective and the experience that you bring to the table. I think just as a board member here in BUSD, I've seen numbers that we tend to, like, we get like these projections, and then like they're very doom and gloom, and we can't do this, we can't do that because of this money. But then, you know, at the end of the year, it's like, oh yeah, we're 2 up, or and it's and I went through all. I save all my board books. I went through like the past 2 years of it, and it's very consistent. I think having the staff that we have right now, I'm very I'm very optimistic about where we're going, and I know that these are all assumptions. I just feel like there seems to be like some reason for that, and like sometimes the money we're getting in, we actually get a lot more in. But I would almost feel like that would be built into the assumption. But I'm sure if you're an accountant, and you'd never want to assume that you're going to get something then not, right? So I get being conservative with the accounting. But that's just something that I've noticed through my time here on the board. And yeah, as long as we can close that gap on our assumptions, I think it'll be good.
We will be closing the gap by more than that.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Board Member Armstrong.
Yes, I just want to, so as you continue to work with the budget, and will you just give us updates on how you're trying to really stabilize it and move things around?
Absolutely, I can continue to do that. I will do that in public sessions in the March and the June timeframes for sure. If there's been any major changes between that, we can communicate that as well.
Okay. Well, I do want to know, do you foresee any doom and gloom?
Well, if I were to refer to, you asked, right? Yeah. I don't call it doom and gloom. I call it an opportunity for improvement, right? And this is what we're showing. We lost about $8 million in revenue this year. So our ending fund balances are going down. We're also planning on some projects and some other items that will be utilizing general fund unrestricted. So I'm not here to doom and gloom. I'm here to work with you, the board, with my fellow cabinet members, and to come up with how we're going to address any of these declines. And so I'm not trying to project gloom and doom. I'm trying to project what I really do think that we're going to experience, and I'll adjust it when I know more information that I can provide better numbers.
Okay, and the last thing I'm going to ask about is because I'm thinking about staff. Are we thinking about how this may or may not affect staff in the future?
Absolutely. As most districts, 85% of the district is made up of staff. The dollars and cents go around classified, certificated, and benefits for those staff. So every decision that we're making is going to be made around staff and our students for the betterment of our district.
Okay. All right, so far we don't have to cut any programs.
This reflection is what we have at the time.
Okay.
With no board-approved cuts to programs.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. And I'm fine with a little doom and gloom. I appreciate the conservative accounting, is what I'll say.
That's why I brought this back up, and so I really appreciate you saying that. It's not that I don't think.
I get it.
Okay.
Like it's better to
Be
make sure
prepared.
we're safe and solvent and responsible. And I 100%. You've seen the projections of the past.
Understand.
They are just. It's how do you operate? It's just very hard to make decisions when you think that's. I think the projections 2 years ago put us like. I think right now we're supposed to be at 35 million. They're really off. So, doom and gloom's cool, I guess. But I appreciate the conservative accounting, and I know you're on top of it, and I have a lot of faith in you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Nope. Thank you very much, Renee. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve item 12.2?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Yeah, I second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Student Member Ojose?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Any items to withhold from the consent agenda, board colleagues?
I have 2.
All right.
13.17 and 13.21.
All right, any others? Board Member Armstrong? No? I don't have any. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and withhold items 13.17 and 13.21?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Student Member Ojose?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Just give me 1 second here. Oh, no, I got it. All right, we will go on to the first withheld item, 13.7, amendment to the annual contract listings and agreements, 24-25 fiscal year. Any comments or questions from the board?
I had one question. I think it's going to be for Bonnie, but the GWAP Consulting, it says that it provides STEAM activities after school, and I see that it's quite a bit. My question is, what is this, and how is it comparing to our after-school Think Together and the one-on-one programs that we've been talking about? Why is this different, and can you just give me a little background on this, please?
Okay, there's my voice. All right, so GWAP is STEMnetics, and that's a layered on service that we're providing in our district. It is part of our expanded learning program, so they are providing STEM services during the Think Together program. So we've got the additional here was for spring. So we had done the earlier fall, and now we're increasing for spring. But we mentioned the one-on-one tutoring services. That's FEV tutoring, and so this is different. This is people coming in to do STEM lessons with our students.
So if they're coming in, did I hear correct that they're coming in, it's like they're working or collaborating with Think Together to do some of these things with them?
Absolutely, so they'll do that, or the school sites can also contract for them to come in either during or after the school day or other events that they might do.
So it could also be something that's more individual. So you have Think Together, you have this, and they're separate, or they can work together?
Absolutely, we could have it either way.
Okay. I guess my question is just, what are the advantages? Because we have so many after-school programs, and I know this is different, and I get it, but if they're working with Think Together and we're paying so much for Think Together, I'm just, again, this is another $1 million, and I get it, but what are the advantages of this?
I'll answer in a couple of ways.
Okay.
One is that it's important for us to remember that we do have to spend our expanded learning program monies.
Okay.
And that is about $9 million, and we did have carryover funding. So we are making sure that we spend down that carryover funding. So these layered services are part of that. The other part that I'll answer is STEMnetics is offering more classes that our Think Together individuals would not be able to provide, because they will come in with materials and expertise that Think staff would not necessarily have. So it is really enriching the experience of our students in the after-school program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Thank you, Bonnie. Do I have a motion to approve 13.17?
You have that motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Student Member Ojose?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. We'll now move on to the next withheld item, which is 13.21, and that is revised budget 24-25 fiscal year.
So that was exactly my next question is I'm looking at the ELOP opportunities, and I'm seeing that we have that carryover of about 2.6 million. So our revised budget has that at 11.7. I'm wondering, I know we have carryover. how is the ELOP funding being used? Like, if you could give me an idea on where we spend most of our money with ELOP. I know every district is different. Ours are very into field trips, after school clubs, sports, things like that. What are we primarily spending our money on as far as ELOP is concerned?
Absolutely. So our base and our most expensive, as you've mentioned, is our Think Together program. We do offer that at all of our school sites as well as our middle schools. We also have STEMnetics. We have Young Rembrandts as well. So what we're looking at is we have some layered on services and then some enrichment as well. So we have Lift Culinary, STEMnetics, Nexplore, and that's for think and non-think students. So what we did this year, thinking about that carryover, was we wanted to provide the schools an opportunity to develop their own enrichment programs. So we offered some of those vendors that we're working with to the sites. The sites talked with their communities, decided what it was that they wanted to provide, and we've helped them contract with them. So they have fall offerings and spring offerings. Some of the other is spent on our summer academy, our summer school. We do field trips as well. So spring break, we tend to do field trips. And we'll do a couple during summer as well. And then paper and FEV tutoring.
So our administrators, are they working with our teachers and staff where they're able to do some of these? Because I know, like, in our district that I teach in, we're getting so many opportunities to make some extra money. And with COLA being so low and the fact that we probably aren't going to get salary increases this year, this has been a really nice way for us to supplement our income. And it's one-on-one with our students. They're doing different things, Are the administrators working with our teachers to get some of them involved to be able to make a little extra money doing great things for our kids?
We've shared the opportunity with all of our school sites, and our teachers have the opportunity to submit sort of a description of what it is that they would want to do, a proposal,
Okay.
right? Whether it be intervention or enrichment. We do have 15 classes, so that's who's opted to participate in the enrichment or intervention, and it looks like we've got 9 enrichment and 6 intervention proposals that are happening right now.
But that's across the entire district?
It is across the entire
I'm
district.
hoping that maybe our teachers union and our president will get some of their teachers to maybe do a little bit more. I just really feel like it's really great opportunities to take field trips. You can go to colleges. Do we have an approved list of places that they can go for field trips?
There's not necessarily an approved list, but typically if there's a field trip that they would like to go to and there's a form they fill out with an educational reason, they can submit that to their principal.
Okay. I think it would be a good idea. I'll talk to Carrie McDaniels about this later, but I do think it would be a great idea to get more people involved. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Do I have a motion to approve 13.21?
I motion to approve.
I have a second.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Student Member Jose?
Aye.
Ms. Armstrong?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Motion passes. It's now time for the Board of Education members to communicate and communications and reports. Let's begin with, I'm going to switch up the rule here. Let's start with the student board member, Ojose.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to talk today about the CSBA annual student board member program. I attended it last Wednesday, and it was basically just a 2-day training program, which helped me a lot. And, I learned more in depth about the roles and responsibility of a student board member and how to utilize data from California School Dashboard and more. And I also networked with over 150 other student board members that are in my position. And then day 2, I did have the opportunity to go to Disneyland with all the other board members. So I gained new friends and explored Disneyland. And also I went through the Imagination campus, I believe, and I learned more about what it is to be a leader. So that experience really was helpful and fun. That's all.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Board Member Armstrong.
I didn't go to Disneyland. I wanted to, though. So, hello to everyone. Again, it's 9:30, and I really appreciate you for choosing to spend your this evening. I was unable to attend the November 14th meeting. However, I did watch it, and I want to thank my board members for the time that they have dedicated to the detailed input into many of our new adoptions. It's imperative that we update cautiously because this is the beginning of a new Bellflower Unified School District. So again, I missed the last board meeting, but I am excited about because we just had the election, and I am excited about Prop 2 passing because our facilities statewide, it does need help. I know I didn't go for the bond, but I want to address once again my comments regarding placing a bond on the ballot. So before placing the bond on the ballot, I just think there needs to be planning and not just rushing. I have to admit that I'm, missing some things. Kind of blaming myself for the lack of communication that comes from all of us board members, from all board members and the superintendent. But I just wanted to bring it up because even our last bond, Mayfair utilized 75% of the funding. They used a lot of it. I really do want to see a clear plan for us to move forward that's going to address the district as a whole. I know we have our master's facility plan, as I stated before, but please, I really would like to see something as a whole that the whole district can benefit from. And additionally, just because we didn't pass the bond doesn't mean that we can't use past projects to apply for funding, and that has always been available and continues to be available to us. So again, we just need to have a clear, equitable plan that addresses all of our constituents and how we will address the shortfalls, because the bond is not going to address all of our needs. But at the same time, it needs to be fair and equitable throughout the district. So again, I stand by my decision, but I look forward to supporting a bond when we're ready. So, let's get to work and let's be clear and let's involve everyone so that we can really that we could really plan and be ready. Because there are a lot of things, I can just see us having new tennis courts, a new surface. I can remember we talked about an aquatic center before. This was years ago. So it's a lot of stuff that we can't have. We have a band room that's been in disrepair. But like I said, let's be equitable in our approach with this bond. Okay? And again, we have wonderful teachers, and I do believe that they deserve the best because they are working with who we value the most, which is our students. So let's be fair. I also attended, I did a lot of stuff over the past 2 months, but I've actually been busy also in my personal life with my mother. So you guys, keep me in prayer about that. But I did attend the CASB conference with my fellow board members. We had, I don't want to go into it because there's a whole bunch of stuff we did. I mean, I got all my notes written out. But I am going to mention that I did the most, of all the sessions, the one that I really liked was this one titled Fixing I Don't Do Math with Critical Thinking. Because, you know, I think a lot of our children are struggling with math and reading. And I had been wanting to go to this workshop, and I finally had an opportunity to do so. And I brought his book because I just had to, you know, read in detail his strategies so that he was using. So his name is Colin Seal. He's the founder and CEO of Think Law. So Think Law, I'm like, what does that have to do with math? But I don't know. I don't know whether you've seen it before, but I do have the book. I love books too. I also attended the Well Untapped Network retreat, in which we visited the Los Angeles Aqueduct filtration plant. So we went to Burbank, and I don't know if you ever heard of the Cascades. You know, you see those water things, those pipes coming down out the mountain. So I was up there, and you know, I met one of the policy experts, and we discussed the plan for using Prop 4 monies and like what opportunities that might come up within our local community, and you know, the role water is going to play with agricultural, because you know, we're always supposed to be conserving water, and to see if, you know, we're going to be to see if we have to be held to a long-term stability plan for water usage in California. So I did the ethics training with one of my board members, and so I'm good for another 2 years. So I felt good saving the district a little bit of money, because we only paid $125 for that course, and it's usually about $600 during the CSBA. So that's about it. That's good. All right. And CSBA, I didn't do Disneyland, but did y'all do Disneyland? California Adventure? My goodness, you guys are worse than me. Before I let you go, I have to. My favorite thing about CSBA, I just want to say this. I told you one favorite thing about CASB, so I'm going to tell you about one favorite thing in CSBA. My favorite, it was a keynote speaker, and her name was Corey Lathan. And this lady here, she developed robots for kids with disabilities. She's, you know, like a big thing when it comes around to virtual reality and technology. She's created wearable sensors that for training surgeons and soldiers. I mean, she's a global leader when it comes around to technology and how humans can use it to enhance their performance. She's a social advocate, and she's involved in a lot of STEM programs that empower women and minorities in science and technology. So again, if you know me, I love books. I bought the book titled Inventing the Future. So I'm enjoying the stories that as I'm journeying through this book. So, but anyway, that's it, you guys. Keep me in prayer, and that's it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Board Member Armstrong. Vice President Stewart.
Good evening. First, I would like to direct staff to start looking into a bond on our next election. We spent many months on the bond, just so everybody knows, and it's not just that we didn't pass a bond, we didn't give our community a chance to even vote. We took your voices away, and that was not right, and I promise as long as I am sitting on this dais, for all of you, I will make sure that your voices are heard and give you the opportunity to speak for yourselves. Next, before the break, I received an email from a teacher in our district. Her name is Hannah Hoffman, and her third grade class, they completed a community service project. They applied for and they got a grant, and they spent the time and money creating cards and buying gifts for children staying at the Miller's Children's Hospital. And it was such a great idea, and the students got involved, and I just love the spirit and the positive energy right before Thanksgiving. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Miss Hoffman and her class for doing amazing things. I attended the ethic training as well. On Saturday, December 1st, President Critchfield, Clerk Garza, and myself, along with Ms. Acevedo, Ms. Renee Arcus, Principal Diaz, we took part in the 605 All-Star Bands Parade through Bellflower and Lakewood, and it was just awesome. As you've heard, they will be attending the Rose Parade, and it's a true collaboration of so many schools and students, and it was just a fun day. We got to ride in the fire truck with our Cal Apps family, and I even got my daughter Taylor to attend with me. I couldn't believe she went with me, but she did. And so I'm really excited for the students and for the opportunity of a lifetime to be in that parade. So I just want to say that was a really cool event. December 4th, 7th, I attended the CSBA conference in Anaheim. We started the conference by hearing from a keynote speaker. Her name was Dr. Lori Santos. She's a professor at Yale, and she teaches the course, The Theory of Well-Being. This is actually a free course. There's one version for adults, there's one for teens. I really think it would be a good idea to share that with our administrators so that if anybody wants to take the course, it's awesome. I actually took the class about 5 years ago after COVID, and so I was really excited to see that she was our speaker. She talked about the studies and the data that they've generated, and they've done a lot of different studies at universities just regarding mental health and happiness. So I just want to share with you guys, she had her top 10 insights to happiness, and I'm not going to expand, you guys pretty much get them, but they were really cool. Number 1 was happiness matters for your performance. Number 2 is connect with others socially even when you're not feeling it. 3, helping others makes us happier than we expect. 4, make time for gratitude every single day. 5, healthy practices matter more than we expect. 6, be in the present moment and savor the good things. 7, be in the present moment even if it feels crappy. 8, give yourself the gift of self-compassion. 9, love your job by focusing on your strengths. And she had a whole list of all the different characteristics and strengths that you could choose. And it didn't matter where you fell as long as you believed in them and went with them. And number 10 was become wealthy in time and not in money. And so I just thought that was an amazing workshop. She was a great speaker. It's a free Yale course. If you guys are interested, again, it's The Theory of Well-Being. The best workshop I've ever attended was one presented by Beverly Hills Unified, and it was on effective communication. And I'm going to sit down and talk with Mrs. Acevedo. I've kind of already started talking to her about some of the ideas I got. One thing I loved was their communication guidelines for parents and guardians. It's kind of a where do I start chain of command, sorry, so families know who to go to and where they go to if they need help. They discussed the different tools they have for communication. They discussed in a crisis how they get their messages out. They get a message out within 3 minutes of the start of the crisis, and they update every 15 minutes until the crisis is over. And I really loved that idea. They discussed weekly newsletters from specific sites, but each newsletter goes out at the same time, every week, the same day. So again, it's common practices across the district where everyone's receiving them at the same time. They talked about how to craft messages. Some of their emails, they did Q&A, so if they kind of anticipated the questions that would be asked from parents or staff, and that's the way they created it, so it was easy to read. It had bullets instead of one big long paragraph that nobody wants to read. So it was really nice the way they effectively created theirs, and it just gave me a lot of ideas to talk with our staff about. I attended a workshop on the superintendent's evaluation. I think the most important thing we can do as a board is to hire an amazing superintendent. I tell Mrs. Acevedo all the time, we're never gonna find someone like her, but I hope we find someone with her temperament and her just passion for our kids. And the second is to create goals together and with our superintendent and show how we're progressing towards those goals. So that was a really good session I attended as well. The conference helped our fairly new staff really get to spend some time together, team building and bonding, which was so much fun, and I really enjoyed working with the staff that we have right now. We seem to work really well together, and I think we're doing really good things. So thank you to all of you guys. I really appreciate all your hard work and all your collaboration, and it was really fun to just get to know you guys more as human beings at the conference instead of just our poker faces and sitting right here. So that was awesome. I did want to say congratulations to 2 of our Bellflower High School alumni that were reelected to the Bellflower City Council, Victor Sanchez and Dan Coops. They both went to Bellflower. And congratulations to Councilmember Wendy Morse. And just lastly, I look forward to the district breakfast next week. I hope everyone has an amazing holiday. And we hope that you can join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the celebration of outgoing President Critchfield and the swearing in of Clerk Garza and our new board member, Cintron. It should be an amazing night. So thank you so much for everything, for all of you guys do, and thank you to our teachers and our staff. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. I'm done writing my notes for my board report. So it's been busy as always. I was able to go up to Sacramento for the swearing in of Jose Salache, who's our new assembly member. I think it's really important to have those relationships with those electeds and finding opportunities so they can help us enrich, whether it's in facilities or just working with us, is really important. I also got the chance to talk with Josh Lowenthal, who's the co-author of that cell phone bill that came through, and get his perspective from somebody who wrote the bill. So that was a really good conversation. Went to the Bellflower reorg and swearing in. Congratulations, Victor Sanchez and Dan Coops, as well as Wendy Morris. I actually went with our newest not sworn in yet member, Marina Cintron was there too, so that was cool. CSBA was great. I also sat in the meeting for the Somerset Model School meeting. That was great. The superintendent evaluation was probably my favorite breakout session. And I really did like that the theory of well-being one. And then Lisa, your favorite was the AI one, right? The AI one, I think that was your favorite. And it's that one particular, the CSBA is always fun because we get to all be together, and not only for the breakout sessions, but also just having lunch, and again, that human side. And I, like Vice President Stewart said, appreciate all of you, both in your professional roles, but also as just human beings. So thank you for putting up with me. I appreciate that. The All-Star Band, I mean, who didn't love that? Shout out to Tom Phillips. I mean, that's just like the ultimate, when he talks about how that came to be, that's just manifestation. Like, he just said, like, hey, I have this idea, and it just happens. Like, for me, it's like it's so inspirational, and it's also for those kids. And I got to have Tori and Brooklyn on the fire truck. That was something. I think we should bring it back. I think we should do more parades. I don't know. Free pizza and more parades. Vote Brad Critch. Okay. I was able to meet with Michelle Cuellar, CSA, and Carrie McDaniel. I always appreciate you guys taking the time to meet and talk about the issues. Cell phone policy, I really like the public forum. That was cool. Got to hear from everybody, and whoever fills the seat as president, whoever that may be. Hopefully they look for those opportunities to have more of that. That was good. I should have done more of those. Live and learn. Negotiations. I'm not going to touch too much on it, but I do think that we, as a district, have worked really hard to get to a place where we're going to work together, we're going to collaborate. And that's the only thing I expect going forward, is that we work together and we collaborate and we remain respectful. And I think when I see that the unified in purpose, like, it's easy to say, but if there's one place where the rubber meets the road, it's probably in that situation. If you could do it there, we could do it around the district all year long. But I think negotiating is kind of fun. But I know it's very difficult and it can be tense, but all I expect is be respectful, and let's work together, and let's keep going in the right direction. What else I got? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Happy holidays, everybody. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Informational items. Does the board have any questions regarding the informational items?
I just have a question. I'm glad you went to go see Jose's, his swearing in. I think we all know him and all of that. Do you know him, Amy? Kind of, okay. So I didn't know you were going. So did you offer all of the board members to go and see him? We all love him. You know, I walked the precinct with him over here where my mother lives. You know, told everybody, hey, you guys got to vote for him and Victor. You know, so what was it offered to all the board members?
In this particular event, we did not. So in some cases, in majority of cases, we send out an invitation to everyone, depending on what the event is. This was a request by a board member, and in this particular case, I think in some instances where we know we can't send everyone, it makes sense to send the president on behalf of the board. If the president's unable to attend, then we would need to ask the vice. If the vice is unable to attend, we'll go through that role. There are some events that we can't all go to.
Oh, okay.
It's just not possible.
All right.
All right, any other requests or questions for information items? No? All right. Well, if there's no objection, this meeting is adjourned until tomorrow. At 6 p.m.? Lisa, it's 6, right? Lisa, it's 6 tomorrow, right? Okay. 6 p.m., Friday, December 13th, 2024. Have a good night, everybody.